Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 83 of Cutscene Combos. We've got an absolute monster episode this week after waiting for nearly 2 weeks. Character profile on Black Manta, Ahsoka episode 5, Ahsoka episode 6. We've got an Aquaman 2 trailer that needs to be dived into a little bit, pardon the pun. Nerd News Network with some juicy bits of information, as well as the Content Championship, which as always is hell on earth. Amazing Spider-Man 1 versus the Phantom Menace. But for all that good stuff, Horizontal, how have your last couple of weeks been?
The last couple of weeks have been pretty good. Obviously, after the last episode, I went on a holiday for a week.
You did?
Was very chilled, had a nice time, got good weather when we were heading there expecting bad weather, but we somehow dodged all the rain and everyone else was having rain. So we had hot weather, was right by the beach, even
Lovely.
though it's a British beach, but still was nice. Got out, did lots of things, visited lots of places. Pretty much all went well. Had a bit of fun dealing with my car rental that I did because I rented a bigger car. Yeah, it's something I'm still now dealing with after the holiday. Trying to get some money back that I was charged for that I didn't want to be charged for.
Have they screwed you over?
A little bit. Classic.
Oh, phenomenal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
you just
love
can't
that.
trust anyone.
But other than that, the holiday was great. And then this week's
Well,
just been getting caught up on work.
oh, fun and games.
Yeah, getting back into the swing of things after a week away. Even freelance is tough to get back into the work mode. But yeah, that's been my couple of weeks. How's the world of Conor been?
It's been good. I'll be honest, last week was kind of weird because I didn't have stuff to do for the podcast. And while the podcast doesn't take up a disgusting amount of time, but because of the way I do it, it's like an hour each night after I get in from work before I do other stuff. So it's kind of like I have an extra hour here. And when you have an extra hour in the middle of stuff, you do just find yourself going, that's an awkward amount of time. What do I do? Yes, I filled it with Starfield, but it meant instead of doing an hour of Starfield, it just made me late for whatever the next thing was. Because video games. I'm at like 80 hours in Starfield now.
That's rookie numbers.
I'm so addicted.
Come on, we need to get you up to 1,000 hours.
The problem is I can see it happening.
Especially once mods are out.
Yeah, I'm in love with it. It's one of the greatest games ever.
Is it better than Baldur's Gate though?
Okay, so this is one of these this is one of these techie things. Baldur's Gate 3 is a better game. Mm-hmm. It is. I adore Baldur's Gate 3. You know how I feel about Baldur's Gate 3. Mm-hmm. But Baldur's Gate 3's been out for a month and a half. Mm-hmm. And I have not even got 60 hours in that.
Interesting.
So I've done 20 more hours in, 2 weeks? In Starfield? Starfield itches the part of my brain that no other game can.
Wait, how Starfield's been 2 weeks? Oh, wow.
Yes, I'm doing... It's a full-time job.
Do you know what I'm realising? How addicted I was to New World when that dropped. Do you want to know how many hours I did in the first 2 weeks?
You had like 150, didn't you?
I had somewhere close to 200 hours in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You
absolutely degen the fuck out of it.
I forgot how bad... And there's a deal.
Really bad.
Their expansion's coming in October.
Yeah. You have responsibilities, Hori.
Yeah, to be the master logger in New World. That is my responsibility.
Man is single-handedly responsible for deforestation in New World.
Oh, 100%. I've spent hours chopping down forests.
Just go see Reddit posts. I'm trying to upgrade logging, but there's just no trees. Does anyone know what's going on?
Who's this person?
Legend of Horizontal.
Who's this one person that's selling all of the top tier material? Hi. Anyway.
But yeah, other than that, it's just been
chill.
It's been busy. There's just been a lot going on. Work and everywhere, and obviously we're still trying to get flat stuff sorted, which is moving, and it's kind of one of them weird periods where we've done a lot of what we need to do and it's just waiting for stuff. But it also means now if you get asked something, you need to freaking answer it then and there on the spot like there's a gun to your head, which just makes it chaos.
Yeah,
But
imagine.
it's been good. It's been good. I have missed this though. Like you said, I feel like a bit of a lost puppy when I don't have stuff to do.
Especially with the episodes of Ahsoka we've had.
Yeah,
I've
it was
been
wild.
itching.
Yeah. Poor Jenna got the brunt of it. I was just like, and this means, and this, and this, and I was fucking explaining everything to her. She's never even fucking watched Rebel. She doesn't get it at all. But she's like, yeah.
Thankfully, my mate who I was on holiday with, we both watched it separately on our phones, and then we were literally down at the beach talking about the episode. Oh, so nerdy.
You can take a nerd to the beach, but you can't stop him being a nerd. But before we get into Ahsoka, we've got a very important character profile this week.
Yes.
And it has some very important information that I'm almost certain you will not be aware of.
Most likely.
And the second this bit of information gets to you, you're going to be aware of why I'm so desperate to talk about the Aquaman trailer later.
Okay. Intrigued.
Okay.
You've got me intrigued.
Black Manta. Now, this character profile is based on information up until 2011.
Okay.
So before the New 52 and then Rebirth and whatever we're on to now. I don't know how much has changed since then, but this is kind of the important information. Black Manta first appeared in Aquaman number 35 in August 1967.
Okay.
He an old boy.
Yeah, he an old boy.
And Black Manta is one of Aquaman's main foes, if not his main foe. And he is also the genre of DC villain that is obsessive.
Right, okay.
We've spoken before about how the Joker is obsessed with Batman and Reverse Flash is obsessed with the Flash.
Yep.
Black Manta is obsessed with Aquaman.
Right, okay.
Manta was born in Baltimore and enjoyed playing in the sea as a child.
Right.
However, one day he was kidnapped and forced to work on a boat as a child.
Okay.
While trapped on the boat, he saw Aquaman and tried to signal for help, but Aquaman didn't see him, leaving Manta stuck on the boat with his captors and tormentors.
Right.
Manta was stuck on the boat for a very long time. We're not quite sure how long, but for a long time. Eventually, Manta was forced in a situation in which he was forced to kill his captors and escape.
Okay.
As a result of his time on the ship, he had grown to hate the sea, and Aquaman, who he saw as intrinsically linked with the sea, being the protector of the sea and sea creatures, as well as obviously Aquaman being someone he thought chose not to help him.
Yep.
Upon returning to the mainland, he was taken to a mental hospital for his autism. Now, people need to remember context of the times. These details were written in like the 60s and 70s. So a lot of representation of autism and the such is nowhere near the kindest representation.
Oh yeah, I can imagine for that time
and
period.
it's not ideal. So him being autistic would have been seen as like, oh, something's wrong with him, rather than just that's part of who he is. I don't believe this has been retconned, but it's definitely been eased up and less turned into a negative on his character and just a statement of who his character is.
Yep.
While in this mental hospital, he suffered even more abuse at the hands of his carers. In various attempts to cure him,
right,
he was subjected to essentially waterboarding and everything. So much so to the point where he actually viewed the waterboarding as comforting and his comfortable bed as torture.
Damn.
In an attempt to get him to communicate with them, because he was non-verbal, they began injecting him with different cocktails of drugs. Eventually, this did get him able to communicate full sentences. And and Manta used his ability to communicate more fully with them to calm the doctors and get them to loosen his restraints. At which point, Manta grabbed the needle used to inject him with all these horrible chemicals and killed the doctor and escaped.
Ah.
At which point, Manta kind of disappears for a while. And we don't see him again until he's an adult. At which point, he developed a specialist wetsuit with the kind of iconic headpiece that has its powerful eye beams, as well as his high-tech submersible, the design of which is inspired by manta rays.
Yeah.
Over the years, Manta became more and more obsessed with toppling Aquaman. For a long time, he was just kind of a villain that popped up, very 60s and 70s comic book style, just, haha, I'm here to foil you. Like, proper, like, imagine He-Man. And then when it got to the point where villains kind of became more... When villains became less the antithesis of the hero and more their own character, is when I think we really start to get really good Black Manta. And that all kind of culminates in the infamous story that is now referred to as Death of a Prince, in which Manta traps Aquaman, Aqualad, and Aquababy, forcing Aquababy into a cage that would slowly suffocate him until either Aquaman or Aqualad killed each other.
Oh.
So he put Aquaman and Aqualad in a cage and said, you two fight to the death. But if you're not quick enough, the baby dies.
Right.
They did manage to escape the trap. However, they were too slow and Aquababy died.
Uh-oh.
Yes. This was quite shocking for the time, as I'm sure you can imagine, because this was like the late 70s. And like even today, killing a baby is not something that's really done. While Aquaman did initially intend on killing Manta for what he'd done, he decided that he could not stoop to his nemesis's levels out of revenge, and instead he was imprisoned.
Okay.
While imprisoned for Aquababy's murder, he sold his soul to the demon Neron and became a human manta hybrid. This was, I'm willing to bet, late 80s, early 90s, where stuff got really wacky in all comic books for a while.
Sounds it.
Before long, he was returned to human form by Aquaman, but this also rendered him normal. Now, I'm not too sure. The details are a little bit sketchy on this. It sounds like as part of his revival process or return to human form, his brain was rewired, and this left him, while still criminally insane. I'm guessing by normal they mean no longer autistic, but that's not said anywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that just means like normal as in he's a normal human who can chill out. Or what.
Maybe.
All I do know is he did go back to his criminal ways until Aquaman was presumed dead.
Right.
At which point he just became a fishmonger.
Oh.
And there's actually quite a, I don't want to say quite a famous, a semi-famous comic book panel in which he's working as a fishmonger, and then he hears a radio static in the background, and it goes, Aquaman has returned. And his eyes like glaze over. He grabs the knife he's been using to cut open this fish. He kills his customer. And then runs to his house and becomes the Manta again.
Damn.
Almost as if he was like in hibernation or like a sleeper agent.
Yeah.
But that is Black Manta. We did, of course, see Black Manta in the first Aquaman film, but more as a henchman, mercenary side character. He definitely harbored some ill will towards Aquaman, but that wasn't really explained too well. But he's clearly a lot more vindictive in this second trailer, and is clearly the main villain. And there are some things we need to discuss. But before that, Ahsoka episode 5.
Oh my god! I said I was away on holiday. I was tempted to wait so I could watch it on a TV. Obviously, I knew I wouldn't have the best signal. But as each passing day, I was like, I think by Friday, I was just like, I can't risk spoilers. I was no longer scrolling social media. And I knew people had said, oh my God, this episode and stuff. So I was like, I can't. I have to watch it. I'm so fucking glad. I'm so glad I did. Because, oh my God, episode 5.
Masterpiece.
Oh, I don't know. I will say this. Ahsoka, very quickly, I would say now has become my favorite Star Wars show. And I would even say episode 5 is probably my favorite episode ever.
I'm not willing to put Ahsoka above Andor. I think the problem is, and I mean, it's not actually a problem. But for me, I am aware that a lot of Ahsoka relies on, I don't want to call it nostalgia because that downplays it, but it requires on feelings towards actors and previous content.
Yeah.
Whereas Andor exists in the universe, but its own encapsulated story.
Yeah, I get you.
And for that reason alone, I can't put it above Andor yet, but it is still peak Disney Plus TV. It's absolutely one of the best.
Dave's gone full like he is.
Can you
giving
refer
us a
to me
feast.
chef, please?
Chef Dave.
Man is cooking.
He really is. Like, if you like, honestly, George Lucas. Great job, George, picking him. Great job.
The rule of 2 is alive and well.
This is true. You picked a great apprentice. I am excited to see who Dave Filoni one day picks.
Me.
Luke. But episode 5, there's so much happened in that episode.
Yes.
So much.
Of course, the major talking point is the realm between realms.
Yes.
Or world between worlds. I would like to claim that I fucking called it.
Okay.
So, if you remember, cast your mind back what feels like eons ago.
Yeah.
We were talking at the end of episode 4 about what could be happening.
Yes.
And I accept that what we saw is Anakin.
Yep.
But I refute it is truly Anakin. I believe it is merely the Force. He is just one with the Force, so the Force has full access to him. I believe that I was right when I said this was Ahsoka's trial to face her greatest fear. Because all of this stuff under the guise of I'm teaching you the last lesson you need was actually just, you need to actually face the fact that you couldn't have saved me. You need to live.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say you were. The way I see it is, I think I was wrong with my prediction that like it wasn't actually like there was a trap there.
Yeah.
What I think it was is, I think you're right in some way in that like it was I do think it was the Force ghost of Anakin, but it's there through her connection to the Force. So then there's influence from her memory of Anakin bleed through, and kind of her perception of things. Because it's obviously her connecting with the Force ghost of Anakin. So I think you're right in the sense of like, it's not full Anakin as his true self, but it's kind of, I think it is Anakin's Force ghost, but like her memory influences it. Like she's more 100%. Reliving. He's there in her memory, and that obviously then influences things. Because there's bits later on that like Anakin turns around and goes, you can tell it's like, okay, you're still dealing with the fact you couldn't be me, so let's get through this bit.
Yeah, 100%.
But so those I mean, Anakin. First off, Anakin looked great.
Oh, for sure.
I thought they did a great job with.
I am over the digital de-aging though.
Yeah, but it's like they didn't have to it's not like they did an aggressive de-aging on him.
Yeah,
so
I think the amount we saw here is okay. I think I disliked it because they've used it so much when they could have just recast instead. And I'm seeing a dangerous pattern. Especially when we know what else Disney are looking into and considering when it comes to scanning actors and just being able to use them forever.
I think if they want to keep Anakin at that age whenever he's a Force Ghost, then yeah. But I actually don't think we see Anakin again, so I don't think it's a worry.
I kind of don't want to either.
We might see him again in this series, but I don't. Or maybe the Mandalore arc, he might show up later again, but I think we'll be done with him. But yeah, I think Anakin looks amazing. I liked how he kind of prefaces all this with like, it's time for your final lesson, which mirrors the fact that Ahsoka had mentioned earlier in the series of like, I walked away from Anakin before you finish my training, all leaning into that. Everyone latched onto the Ahsoka saying, I won't fight you, and he says, I've heard that before. Not explicitly said, but very much implied from when he heard it from Luke as Vader.
100%.
Which then is why I think it is Anakin's Force Ghost mixed with her memory influencing things.
100%.
Anakin did the spin.
Yeah.
He did the spin. Everyone, I know for a fact that everyone watching that was like,
100%. It is the Leonardo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The other thing I quite enjoyed was I found out that Rosario Dawson and Hayden Christensen also went to acting school together.
Yes, they did.
So they've known each other for a really long time, and this is the first time they've got to work together.
Yeah. And the fact that they get to play these characters.
Yeah. So for them, it was like, we get to play two characters who are really close, and we also like get to be really close.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it works perfectly. Like it's like the perfect casting choice because then that energy of that friendship energy does show through.
The wild thing, which, although we've always been aware that Ahsoka was a child during the Clone Wars.
Yes.
Seeing an actual goddamn child in the Clone Wars really hits a lot harder.
Yeah.
Like a lot harder. Like
she wasn't
seeing how young Ahsoka looks during the Siege of Mandalore, you do just find yourself going, oh my god, someone get this child out of here.
Yeah. It's wild, and when you think about like she wasn't the only one during that time, obviously.
Yeah.
I will say, so obviously we got she's having the fight with Anakin. I don't think I wasn't expecting him to cut the floor. Like I was like, oh shit, what happens now? It was like a new moment of like not what I expected from the World Between Worlds. And we go into like her memory, and we get, like you say, live action young Ahsoka finally, full circle moment. I think the actress that played her looked great.
Are you aware of who that actress is?
It's the young Gamora, right?
She played young Gamora. She also played the daughter of the main character in the Barbie movie. And she was that's a main role in the Barbie movie.
Oh, okay.
So like that actress,
she's had a great year.
Yeah, she's had a really good year.
So yeah, I think she looked great as young Ahsoka. The 100%. Only like nitpicky thing I have is, while yes, also seeing the Siege of Mandalore was very cool. Obviously, it's very hard that we'd seen her and then we see her there, and it's not a huge difference. And I was like, it kind of at first my brain's like, she doesn't look old enough. They tried to make her look a bit different and give like the way she was also kind of presenting herself, but because obviously it was very quick back to back. I'm like, you look too young for the Siege of Mandalore.
Well, I actually think in age, the actress is probably closer to the Siege of Mandalore age than the younger age.
Probably.
If anything, I'd say she looked too old in the first one rather than too young in the second one, if that makes sense. But I do get your point.
I think there was just like they could have given her more of the points up that she
Yeah.
has when she gets a bit older. That maybe would have sold it a bit better. But like we got live action Clone Wars, like first like Clone Troopers, the lot like fucking sick. Um,
Did you see everyone's favorite part from one of the flashbacks as well?
the him
The
walking away.
no, the Battlefront clone.
No, I didn't notice
So
that.
from the old Battlefront games, there's a running Easter egg joke, and it's
Right.
a clone who runs like really upright in a full
Oh,
white suit, who just goes just like the simulations. And there was a clone trooper in that all white
oh, that's
outfit
great.
running the exact same way right at the very beginning of I think the first flashback.
That's great.
And everyone's like, oh.
I've seen online that someone sort of worked out what this is a memory of, and they
Yeah, it was
reckon
like,
it's Ryloth.
yeah,
So, which is the planet where the Twi'leks are from.
yeah.
And obviously in Clone Wars, we don't see what Anakin was up to. We just get him like giving a report of like, oh yeah, we've done so and so. So people are reckoning it's that. I saw some people being
Right.
like, so dusty, we couldn't see anything. It's like, well, yeah, it's a memory / dream. It's not.
But also, is Ryloth not really important because Hera's dad was the
Yeah.
person they worked with on Ryloth?
Well, yeah, Hera's dad is the one that ended up liberating it.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah, no, it was an important point. Yeah.
Dave Filoni's been in the kitchen for decades.
Yeah. The walkaway shot. Well, I loved how also they were playing it as like Ahsoka, young Ahsoka obviously had the memories of Ahsoka. She's like, wait, this is the Clone Wars, and like, yeah, no shit. But then the Anakin walk away shot that then flashes to him as Vader, and the clever thing of like when he's Anakin, he's got the troopers are running besides him, flashes to Vader, and he's got no one around him. Like subtle thing like that. Look, like that. Those scenes were so well done.
Yeah.
And then yeah, we get the siege on Mandalore,
Yeah.
the Death Trooper, the Death Watch. They look sick.
So good.
Um,
I know all of us were there for a second, like, God, just give us a flash of her fighting with her as Maul.
yeah,
That's what everyone was sat there
that,
like, God, just
that
give
would
us
have
a
been.
second.
The
internet would have exploded.
But I mean, the huge thing that everyone loved, we got Rex. We finally got official Rex in live 2 times. I kind of wish they clearly only made him one helmet because he didn't have the orange face paint for the Siege of Mandalore, which I'm fine with it. I know some people were like, oh, he's meant to have this helmet. It's like, well, allow it. It's a memory. If you could play it off as like she's remembering how she always saw him most of the time, which was just the normal helmet.
Yeah. It was also interesting in the credits, he was put down as Commander Rex, not Captain Rex.
Yes.
Because in the Siege of Mandalore, she promoted him to Commander.
Yeah.
Which I enjoyed.
Oh yeah, like it fed the fans. That whole
100%.
flashback was, if anything, pure fan service.
What I don't like,
okay,
and I'm going to be, it's not actually critical of the show here, it's critical of the fans. People going straight on the internet and screaming, give us live action Clone Wars, give us live action Clone Wars. It's disrespectful because we've been sat here for what feels like forever now fighting that animation is valid and that the adults who think they're too good for animation need to grow up and just watch it. I finally got my dad to the point where he started watching Clone Wars the other night.
Nice.
Like, we're winning here. Your gut reaction to seeing something that was a cartoon get a live action reference being now give it all of us in live action just once again solidifies that opinion of, oh, okay, well, animation doesn't matter. Ahsoka, while I'm loving this show, works better in animation because of her fighting style.
Yeah, young Ahsoka.
The battle with Maul on Mandalore
Yeah.
would not look anywhere near as good in live action.
No, it wouldn't. Oh yeah, there's definitely like you can have way more fun with the Force and lightsabers in animation. There's a reason Star Wars works so well in animation. And yeah, I don't think people are right for now wanting all of Clone Wars to be live action. Like, no, I think if they did that, it ruins it and it wouldn't
100%.
have the same feel. I think I'm more than okay with them doing flashbacks like this, or if they bring the odd character into live action. Like, if we, by the end of the series, get like an old Rex shows up, fully okay with. But yeah, I don't think people should be wanting full live action Clone Wars.
No,
Oh, the moment when Anakin, like we were saying, that like it gets to the point where it's clearly more of Ahsoka's memory, and Anakin's kind of like, okay, before we can finish this lesson, we need to get past this like grudge you're holding that you didn't get to finish our fight. So I'll give you the fight. And he goes like full Sith Anakin. And when he boots her back into the world between worlds, and you get the like coldest fucking walkout where it flickers between him and Vader, and you hear the Vader breathing, and you're like, oh shit, Anakin.
It was a lot. And this is why I am, and I'm not gonna let it go. I'm convinced I was right, because when they're fighting, we get the flash of Ahsoka's eyes going Sith orange.
Yeah, I do think there was a lot of
But like it maybe if it's not like a shot for shot, it's definitely that same theme that we've seen with Rey and Luke and now Ahsoka, of for you to actually be a fucking Jedi, you've got to fight the dark side, and the dark side doesn't have to be a person. Sometimes it's got to be the dark within you.
I do think this is definitely like the Force. Like the Force has brought her to the world between worlds. It is his Force ghost, but obviously her memories and her Force is influencing things. Anakin's gonna show her like Anakin's Force ghost is gonna play into what she's wanting, because that's the Force is all connected in that way. So, but yeah, I thought it was a very cool episode, and like she learned that lesson, like she disarmed him, and you see like when she throws him away and she goes, no, I choose not to fight, and his like it all just fades away, and it's like, okay, you've succeeded. I've passed on that final lesson. I also really enjoyed the kind of bits we got with young Ahsoka where that she's talking about like, so I'm just a soldier, and talking about the fact that like she didn't get to be a Jedi. No. Anakin had to train her to be just a soldier, and that is why she left it and got to kind of play into that. And then we got
it was and I really enjoyed that, because a big valid criticism of Star Wars for a long time is we're supposed to believe Jedi peacekeepers, yet all we see them do is fight. So Ahsoka like being stood there going, I never got to be an actual Jedi because all I was doing was fighting, is a very easy way of just going, no, listen, Jedi aren't supposed to fight as much as they are. We get it. But it's called Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, it's that thing of like Anakin's like, I had to become a soldier. Even I was trained to be a Jedi and became a soldier. So I have to teach you to be a soldier. I have to teach you what I've learned and when I only know to be a soldier. Yeah. We got Ahsoka the White.
Yeah.
My reference about Dave Filoni mentioned Gandalf. He's fucking doing it. He's really leaning into it.
Her coming out of the world between worlds, having dealt with her demons, accepted that you can be a Jedi without having to be a soldier, getting to rest, and then dressing in all white, fucking awesome.
Honestly, it's like she is full complete on her training. And
do you know what it is?
Go on.
For a long time, like, I mean, you'll remember, like, in school, you're like, when you're like reading like a book, they'll always talk about, like, the big one is always Of Mice and Men. It's like Curly's wife wears a red dress to show she's dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's like the way they explain it to you in school is just like, you're dumb. Yeah. But actually, it's Chekhov's gun, right? Chekhov's gun is like the writing philosophy, for those who don't know, that if a character loads a gun, you have to see the gun get shot. Otherwise, why did you bother writing down that someone's loaded the gun?
Yeah.
it's the exact same point. It's why are we going to bother sending Ahsoka to the world between worlds to learn this lesson if we can't see any outcome to it?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice straight after that, she's a lot less stoic.
Yes.
And going back to people moaning that she was too stoic, like we said, she's just been a warrior her entire life. She'd only known war. She hadn't healed from it. She just accepted it. She's now started to heal from it. She's smiling again.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, if you think back to like Ahsoka's journey, like she left because she was she was just a soldier. She then was on the run and got hunted. So then she survived.
Yeah, and then
she lost.
to fight.
Yeah, you've got to think. She was a soldier. She left, was living her life. She then came back to help them and her crew and Rex, but then essentially had to fight this family that she'd fought with for so many years, escaped, like left all of those people she knew as family behind. She then, as she got older, she ended up fighting Vader and realized it was Anakin, and all of that like turmoil of like, oh shit, he turned to the dark side, and then didn't get to finish the fight, and then she's just lived with all of that. It's kind of this like, yeah, she's not gonna be in the best place.
100%.
Also, we should talk about Jason in episode 5.
So at the end of episode 4, we got the line that we both really loved, and especially the way it was done of "Mum, I've got a bad feeling."
Yeah.
Which, of course, we said was kind of like a kid who just didn't feel well because of getting almost knocked out of orbit. But we're like, no, he's a Jedi. That's the thing the Jedi say.
Yeah, him being like, can you not hear that? And then it's like, I hear the lightsabers. It's like, oh shit, he hears the world between worlds.
Yeah.
Like he's hearing.
That boy powerful.
He's hearing the Force. Whether like it's Ahsoka's Force energy like wanting him to help her be found or what, but he's showing that he's like has this unknown to him really still, but like he has this connection to the Force. And obviously Hera being like realizing what he's on about and knowing, oh shit, he's showing like that he and then being like, I have to take this seriously.
It was Xu Yang dealing with the captain and just going like, why are we listening to what the kid has to say? It's like, Jason's father was a Jedi. He is also showing these abilities. He's like, okay. He's like, I've dealt with enough Jedi to know if a Jedi says something, just do it.
The X-Wing guy's like, oh, okay, we're dealing with Jedi stuff. Okay, I've been around long enough.
Yeah. I'm not going to pretend to understand what the fuck's going on. This is when stuff gets weird and we just do what we're told.
Yeah. But I thought that was very cool. And then as I sort of predicted, Ahsoka rode a Purgle.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I'm very sad that Hera didn't go along.
So am I.
I thought that she would.
I get that she's trying to be a responsible mother. And you would have had people on Twitter just going, why is the woman taking her mother to a... why is this woman taking her child to a galaxy that they know nothing about? Or why is this woman, who's the only parent this child has left, going to a galaxy and leaving their child behind?
Yeah, it wouldn't have made sense, as sad as it would be. I'm very intrigued to see what the fuck happens to Hera, because she's in shit now. And
yeah, she in some trouble.
Considering, like, also, my prediction is she's gonna get in contact with Zeb and kind of be like, we need to be ready for if they come back. But yeah, I liked how Ahsoka went out onto the ship once again. Felt like she spoke to the whale, got back in, and Hu Yang's like, so is this gonna work? And she's like, I have no fucking clue. And he's like, what? Like, you didn't talk to the whale?
It's like, a giant space whale. I did my best.
Very cool the way they did the effects for the Purgles jumping.
Yeah, they didn't give us the full like arrows, but they gave us the same kind of idea with
pulse
like, the blue lights and stuff.
They did
a really good job.
Really good job of bringing that visual over, and the CGI on them is like really there was a couple of janky ones, I think, when they were flying in, where like the depth felt off. Like I was like, that definitely felt like it should be in the ship.
Yeah.
But I think that's just obviously they're overlaying lots of things, and
and sometimes with space that can happen anyway. Like anything
yeah,
set in space, sometimes it can just get a
you
bit
lose the
messy.
depth. Yeah,
Which is why I think in the original trilogy the props were so important.
yeah, the
Because
miniatures
that,
were.
although like there was still times where it felt a little bit off, because there was something physical there, it gave it a more tangible look. But no, you're right. For the most part, it looks really, really good.
Yeah, and that is where the episode ended.
Yeah, it did. Was there anything else we missed in the episode that was kind of important?
The
only Ahsoka doing a Force Echo on the broken sphere and finding out that Sabine went willingly and not telling Hera.
Yes, and
she
realizing
decided to omit that bit of information.
Yeah, I also thought it was very interesting that that orb, just cogs and stuff inside, just old school mechanical, and the witch is obviously like essentially hacked it because they didn't do any of that. She just used magic to hack it. But yeah, that's the only other thing. I can't, and yeah, I don't think anything else happened.
No. And then we get into episode 6,
which opened with the whales.
Yes.
In a very different looking hyper jump visual.
It was very different, and all I can imagine is, how can I describe this? Right, if you are sprinting, me or you are sprinting down like a long straight path next to a road.
Yeah,
everything's going past you quite fast.
Yeah.
But it still looks very different to if you're driving past something.
Yes.
When you're driving past stuff, it's going past you 9 times out of 10 faster than if you were just sprinting. But it feels like it's going past slower because it's more constant and more even.
So I
think that's kind of the idea. A hyper jump is very calculated and done by computers.
That's sort of where
the whales are just like, let's go.
Yeah, that's sort of where my theory was going. It's like the usual like spiral look of it all moving is because it's a calculated mechanical thing that's causing them to jump. The whales, this is just pure nature traveling through space at a hyper speed. Like it's more bright, colorful light. It's streaks rather than a spiral. Like it's not like a mechanical spiral sort of thing. Yeah. It's a natural way of how you would travel through space, where ships have had to mechanically figure that out.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're trying to show. It looked great. I got there's Huang makes like some comment about traveling through space. I forget what it was. It was like, this is a unique way that I've never traveled through space in this way.
Was it not traveling in the mouth of a star whale? I'll have to add this onto a list of weird ways I've traveled.
Do you know what that felt like? That almost felt like David Tennant adding that line as Doctor Who, and it was like a little hint at his Doctor Who time.
Yeah.
And then they talked about stories.
Yeah.
From the Jedi temples.
And Huang being potentially the most caring he's ever been, instead of just a sarcastic bit, which was like, would you like to hear one? I still have them all saved.
Honestly, it was that point where I'm like, fucking hell, Huang is a old as fuck droid.
And when you actually see him next to other droids, you can actually see it in the way they've designed him. He looks more mechanical and old school. He looks more steampunkish.
Yes.
He doesn't look steampunk, but he looks more like that.
Yeah.
Whereas like a chopper or an R2 or just like even like a B2 battle droid, they look more humanoid and less robot-y.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And then Ahsoka confides in him about lying about Sabine.
Yes. Of which you can tell she shows a bit of anger.
Yeah.
In that, which I think Huang picks up on and kind of quells pretty well.
Yeah. He kind of went, well, you don't know what happened. Maybe get the information and then make your decision.
And then obviously Ahsoka dodges it.
Yeah.
And goes, oh, go on, tell us one of them stories. And we get the line.
We get what is now probably going to be my favorite 3 seconds in Star Wars history. Of David Tennant Huang just going, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Now,
so good.
I have a fun theory that those stories, where they were like part 1, part 2, part 3, I saw straight away some people like, oh, sorry, they're referencing episode 1, 2, and 3, and I'm like, no, they're not going to be like
stories. Then, yeah,
they're not going to be that meta about, like, although the Skywalker saga is actually like written by it's meant to be written by a future race talking about stuff that happened in the past. I actually think the stories he's on about is either the founding of the Jedi Order or the first Force users that arrived. Yeah. And that's why it's like a galaxy far, far away.
It is now my headcanon, though, that Huang survives everything, and he is the one telling these stories thousands of years in the future.
That would be pretty cool.
Huang is still alive somewhere. He is in the thousands of years in the future. They're keeping him going. They're finding these rare ancient parks to keep him working. And he is telling the story of the Jedi of tens of thousands of years ago.
Imagine there's a world where Huang just kind of builds a little hut on the back of a Purgle. And that's just what he just
galaxy to galaxy.
Yeah, he has no control where he goes. He just rides on a Purgle, and he's just like has an archive of all Jedi and stuff information. And it's like someone could find him. That would be pretty cool.
Very, very cool. And then it cuts into the title, which is Far, Far Away.
Yes, it does.
Now, something that's very interesting. When Filoni was talking about Ahsoka, he was asked
way back.
Yeah, someone went, "So where's Ezra?" And he went, "He's far, far away."
Yeah.
And obviously, at the end of this episode, we get Ezra, and the episode's called Far, Far Away. And if you look at the clip, Dave has one of them shit-eating grins.
Yeah.
Where he's made himself laugh. He's like, "He's far, far away."
Yeah, he said that as a joke, and then when he's come to writing Ahsoka, he's gone, "Okay, I know when we make Ezra appear."
Yeah.
And I know the title of the episode. And then he's got that, and he's like, "Oh, I know how I can get to the title of the episode." Huang can say,
"Yeah,"
and he's just like having fun with it.
He's such
for sure. Shit. Then we cut to the ring arriving, and the way that comes out of its hyper jump with the crackle of lightning, almost like Sith-like.
And very much like the metal
smoldering,
like red hot.
Yeah, it's smoldering.
It's
very much as they've pushed their technological abilities to the limit.
Yeah, and Purgle have just been doing this for millennia.
It shows
Purgles are actually kind of scary.
Yeah, they've been around since before time began.
Yeah, they're cute, and I want to give them pets, but they're kind of scary.
Yeah. Do you want to know what's a sad realization though? When I'm like, oh, that planet looks cool. It's got like rings around it. Those rings are just a graveyard. And then if you think back to the star map, and we saw the planet, and it's like, oh, it's got symbols of Purgles around it. It's because the Purgles. No, it was referencing the ring of dead Purgles around the planet. Honestly, it's very cool though, because it reminds me of like how elephants travel to their graveyard. That idea. So I thought that was a very cool way of kind of explaining why they jump to this place and migrate to this place.
Oh, that is just the beginning of the fucking symbolism here.
Oh, there's so
I know you'll have a lot of notes on the actual Star Wars stuff. There is some big boy symbolism at play that could not have been used better.
Yes.
So,
go on.
Before we get into the serious stuff, I have one silly comment to make.
Okay, I'm ready.
Shout out to the pilot of the Star Destroyer. That man has parked perfectly. He's got this massive fucking ship, and there's this tiny little stone platform, and he's got it to the perfect height so that Thrawn's lazy ass can walk out perfectly level.
Yeah, on a magical bridge.
That man is not getting paid enough.
No, he's not.
He's not getting paid enough. That is some prime parallel parking.
While this, you're making a silly comment. I agree, but also on par with that shot of the ship appearing and the symmetry of the tower with then the split, like the fold down the base of the ship and everything perfectly lining up was such a beautiful shot.
Such a Star Wars shot.
Yes. I thought so. Obviously, we arrive, and there's the 3 Night Mothers just chilling there.
We find out that the Dathomirians are originally
Yes.
from this galaxy, which is a fucking massive revelation, and also explains a lot of why we don't really understand the Night Sisters at all, because they're from a completely different universe, essentially.
Yeah, that was completely new information. It's up until this point, everyone always was like, they're from Dathomir, but we've now found out they settled on Dathomir and just named the planet after themselves.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. Also, the mention that like they traveled before records of time began, which means they were like one of the first.
They are an ancient species.
Ancient race and species. Yeah. I thought very interesting that there was like the 3 of them, and we obviously had the episode earlier with Toil and Trouble, which we referenced. Obviously, the witches.
They are the 3 witches. Like in this episode, they talk about like the thread of fate, and it was a loose thread, and they didn't see it. It is so Shakespearean.
There's more symbolism in all that. So
of course there is.
We get their names through the subtitles. Their 3 names match up with the 3 Greek goddesses who weave the thread of life. And there's like their hats almost line up with like one of them was like the needle, one is controlling thread, and then one scissors that cuts the thread at death. And there's like a 1 point, like a flowy hat, and then one's got 2 points like scissors. So there's like so much symbolism there that Dave Filoni's putting into this.
And here's the thing. Star Wars has always been so heavily into symbolism. Like, it's outrageously obvious. If we're being honest, Star Wars is actually not a unique IP at all. It is George Lucas sat in his university going, and this bit of history and this bit of theology is cool, and this bit is cool, and this bit is cool, and now we give them laser swords and it's in space.
Literally. I thought their visual style looked incredible, because that's the first time we've seen Night Mothers since Clone Wars.
Yeah.
The way her voice echoed like it used to in Clone Wars all gives the same vibe. Their nails look gross as fuck when we got that really close up on her hand. And yeah, they have been talking to Morgan.
Yeah, they've been the ones reaching out and giving her these dreams of Thrawn.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling Thrawn's manipulated them again, though, just to show how masterful a tactician he is.
I think he's definitely using them. And we've seen that in the Clone Wars, they were happy to work with the Jedi at time, but also worked with the Sith. Like, they're happy to work with anyone. They're playing their own game, and Thrawn also playing his own game, willing to do what he can to survive, obviously.
100%. Can I just say, I love that they got, it's Lars Mikkelsen, isn't it?
Yes.
Back to play Thrawn. I love it. He's done a great job. While I was trying to watch Ahsoka, the episode of Ahsoka the first time last night when I was like half asleep, and I had to end up chalking it and watching it today because I was so tired, it was actually really fucking trippy. Because like in Rebels, the voice actors all, I don't want to say they ham it up a bit, but they do like voices that feel like voice actors. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I know.
But he's doing the exact same voice because he has that voice.
Yeah.
And it genuinely, for a second, I'm like, oh, that's a bit weird. Because it felt like hearing a voice you should never be able to hear. So I was just a little bit like oh no. Because like my eyes are like trying to close on themselves. And I'm like looking, I'm like hearing this voice now, expecting to see the animated Thrawn. And it's Lars because I'm like, oh, it was fucking my brain royally, just because obviously it's the exact same voice, but when you've got like the cartoon in between, it feels like it's that animated character's voice, not a real person's voice.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And you very, very rarely get to see someone who's voiced a character do that voice in live action.
Yeah.
And like Thrawn's voice being such a unique voice. Genuinely, it took me
Oh yeah,
5 minutes of just kind of going, "Ooh."
it hit.
I liked it, but it was weird.
It hit instantly. I was like, "Oh shit, Thrawn's back!" Like
Yeah.
it's that like, oh, okay, this is Thrawn, but like getting to like how Thrawn arrived. Obviously, like the Night Mother's like it reeks of Jedi, and everyone looks at Sabine, and everyone's like, the viewers were all a bit like, but she's not a Jedi.
She fucking wishes.
She's trying. So is this you insane that she does have the Force?
I'm really curious how they're aware of the Jedi, though. Are the Jedi also older than the galaxy we're currently in?
Well, the Jedi Order isn't, but Force users are.
Yeah, but they said the Jedi specifically.
Well, they know
which is
about.
Just interesting.
They know about Jedi because. So when I'm pretty sure that all like memories are connected into the Night Mother, is how it was sold in Clone Wars. So I imagine they have some collective hive mind memory of understanding of who Jedi are. But yeah, I thought it was very funny how they baited us again with Sabine. She's 100%. Like, "Oh, I'm sick of this. I'm going to try and force open the door." And we're like, "Is this going to be the time it works?" And there's a rumble, and you think, "Oh shit, the door's going to open." Nope. Just the Chimera coming into frame at that shot we talked about with the same pattern underneath. And
this is where we need to get into the insanity of the symbolism here.
Yes.
So, the entire idea of the Night Sisters is like they have a lot of control and sway over life and death.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's played into even more with the idea of the three witches and the thread of life. And like you said, the Greek goddesses who spin the wine, manage the wine and cut the wine and all that stuff. Then we go to the other side and a lot of Thrawn stuff. So Thrawn always has a very British aura about him. And you'll remember when I started watching Rebels, I said in the chat to you and Luke, why is Thrawn so obsessed with other cultures? Is he supposed to be British? Because the Empire was based on America, with the rebels being Vietnam and stuff like that. So like that's not an uncommon thing. What's really interesting is you'll notice a lot of his guards have got this kind of cracked pattern, and the ship is obviously not in a great way, and lots of repairs have been done with this kind of gold filling, which is a very ancient Chinese tradition, but it's been misused. So in the Chinese way, it'd be done on like pottery or whatever to add value to like family heirlooms and preserve them. Whereas he's using it for his own tactical gains of preserving his army, his ship, his power, which is not the right way to use it. Which further drives home to me that Thrawn is supposed to be Star Wars' version of the way the British acted. We're going to come here, we're going to learn about your culture, and then we're going to twist it and make it our own for whatever we need it to be.
I think they're going for, I think you're right. There's definitely, Thrawn is sort of gives off British colonialism. And then they're kind of now more so with this as well. I think they're playing a bit into Roman culture as well. Because obviously when Rome fucking went round the world just taking over, they just took things of culture. They were like, that's ours now.
How often do you think about the Roman Empire, Hori?
Every fucking day. I knew you were going to say that. Right, though. Yeah, like, so I think they're pulling from both. That like idea that the Romans stole culture and then the British just like were obsessed with everyone's culture.
And we saw the same thing later on with the raiders that Sabine bumps into. They have all got very Japanese feudal style armor.
Yes, they do.
There's a lot. So if we view it in this kind of idea that a lot of Star Wars has been the West in the way everything's portrayed. We're in a different galaxy, and a lot of the stuff we're seeing here is more Eastern themed.
Yes. Yeah.
And at the same time, we're now getting a bit more of Balin's true motives, which are there's some secret power out here.
We'll slow down on that because I've got theories on that. But I also think
it's very interesting the way the thematically it's identical, but they've just gone to a slightly different place.
Do you know what I'm realizing? Because there's been times where we've seen similar things with because also don't forget this, the night troopers, as they're called, had also the red ribbons on. We saw in Maul's temple that he was hiding out in when he took Ezra, there was red ribbon stuff there. We've seen them use gold, like he had things with gold, and it's clearly something the Night Sisters uses symbolism and shows like their thematics, which would make sense because they're clearly, we're finding out now they're from this planet, so it's sort of like that's been brought over. I think you're right with how they're pulling from things with the cracked armor. Now, before we get a little bit further, I want to say the score that they do when Thrawn arrives and we see the army fucking hits so well. Like that impact hit, it's just like it fits like, oh shit, Thrawn. Like it makes you stop and you're like, fuck. Because obviously there's so many little details. Like obviously you visually straight away you see all the armor's cracked, dirty, worn. If you notice on his like uniform, very frayed in places, shows that like he is doing his best to uphold this like visual that he is obsessed with in this power. But like 9 years is showing. Like he's been in exile for a while with like nothing but what they had. And it's like, yeah, he's not going to have a spare uniform and stuff, but he wants to wear that uniform every day. It's starting to fray, showing its wear.
Yeah, 100%.
But odds on majority of that force being Dust Boys.
Oh, it's got to be quite high, hasn't it?
Yeah. So I have a theory. I think the night troopers, which because he mentioned dwindling forces, I think the night troopers are still all the same clones. Well, would they be clones still then?
No, they'd be
no,
stormtroopers.
they'd swapped, aren't they?
Yeah,
so, yeah.
He's Empire. He's stormtroopers.
Yeah. So I think it's all the same stormtroopers. I think there's definitely situations where some have been injured and the Night Sisters have done magic to keep them alive, but I don't think they're full, sort of like giving Maul his legs back sort of thing. I think Enoch is 100% Dust Boy. And I think it's like, was his right-hand man, they've brought him back to life in pure dust form, and it's like, that's why he's got the gold mask and that specific
Star
look.
Wars, my favorite Star Wars trope is always going to be the masked right-hand man who is just fucking awesome looking. I'm never going to get bored of it. Boba Fett, and then we had, who was it in the sequel trilogy? Captain Phantasma, and then in the Clone Wars, we also had all the clones at different times. I'm never ever going to get bored of Star Wars going, here is an awesome character whose face you cannot see. Enjoy them. Love them.
I saw something online which goes back to like using cultural references and stuff, is the Roman Empire used to make masks of dead people as a way to celebrate them or also wear them in battle. And it's like leans into that. I think that the fact that this is like a complete new look for the stormtroopers that we've ever seen, very cool. Although I'm saying like I think majority of them are actually troopers, I am all for this being the new like undead stormtrooper, and this is how they bring like zombie troopers into Star Wars. I think they might actually be my favorite look for the stormtrooper so far.
The broken down armor that's being held together
with gold
by
and
pure
ribbon
brute force it's a look.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's very, very plausible that a lot of them are Dust Boys, especially when you consider after 9 years, all of them still being so loyal to Thrawn when he's really getting nowhere.
Yeah.
That's not people who are completely of their own free will.
Yeah. That's a point. Obviously they discuss different things. Sabine gets like, and he's like, there's a name I remember. And very like the way he like lays it out as being like, you really sacrificed your own world just to find Ezra.
The
Interesting.
way he said Sabine Wren,
Mm.
like as someone who's like recently finished Rebels, that felt like a wave of nostalgia. Because I know it sounds so fucking dumb, but like I said, it's so rare for someone who voiced the character in an animated show to make the transition to live action, and as on top of that, the voice being such a unique voice, it felt so awesomely weird.
Do you know what? I think if they hadn't used him, I think people would have felt the whole blue face. Like, I'm sure there's people out there that are like, it looked weird, but I think because it was him and his voice, and it's like, it is Thrawn's voice and it's identical, it really actually helps sell the blue skin
100%.
look. Like, you don't think about it because you're so like, holy shit, this is Thrawn.
The one time I like noticed like the weirdishness of the blue skin was when they were stood there talking on top of Sabine was riding out, and you get like that 4-second panning shot of him when no one is saying anything, and I'm like, oh, he looks a little bit weird. They start talking again. And I'm right back in. I'm like, okay, yeah. Tell me, Thrawn, what's going on? What's your master plan here?
I liked how he showed that very tactician. Could it be the late Ahsoka Tano that I was told was killed? Maybe your ex-Jedi guy, like all Jedi, got something wrong. Clearly holds a grudge against the Jedi. I also was intrigued how he called him Commander or Captain? General, sorry. General Baylan.
Well, he wouldn't have fought in the Clone Wars. He's
well, yeah, but like, so either he got the information on him or he knew of that name, whether he knew him in person. I also liked how, just like we saw in Rebels, he would always get all the information about someone he was looking for. He asks for all the information on Ahsoka. Now, I think he will piece together that Anakin was, well, he's gonna
right.
Well, so in the books, when Thrawn was in Star Wars Legends in the books and stuff, he is one of few people that knew Anakin was Vader. Obviously spent time with Vader in the books,
and he just worked it out.
He worked it out, and Vader knew that he knew, but they never explicitly said it. He just, like, it was kind of this unspoken rule of like, yes, I know that you know who I was, and you know, like, but we're never going to speak of it. I think the way they'll kind of portray that in this is he'll get told everything he needs to about Ahsoka. Her master was Anakin, and he'll go, I know, and then he'll realize like Anakin became Vader was him. Oh, and he'll kind of like he'll piece it all together.
Oh yeah, and he'll instantly go, that's a huge pressure point.
Yes, he will try to use that against her. And then we get the mention of, we'll load on the cargo.
I want to know what the cargo is.
It's going to be Dead Night Sisters. It's from the catacombs, and they are very coffin-like looking boxes. Yeah. We know that Night Sisters made the journey on Purgle. It wouldn't surprise me if like Dead Ones made the journey back. They know Dathomir kind of got destroyed and they don't really have a place. They're not really any of them left over there. Why wouldn't they want to take their dead sisters and resurrect them all and rebuild?
It's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This show's only just getting started.
Yes.
And it does concern me slightly about pacing because we've only got 3 episodes left.
I have a new theory on how the pacing is going to go.
Go on.
So we know this is going to take 3 rotations to load the cargo or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, we still need to go on about Ezra and how this episode ended. And there's Baylan stuff to talk about. But if you think about where this episode ends with Ezra, we're obviously going to get some conflict there with Ezra Thrawn. Something's going to happen. We know from the trailer, we know Thrawn steps foot on the hyper ring cockpit area.
Yeah.
So like that ship makes it back into orbit, and I'm pretty sure it's just going to dock into the middle of it and lock on, and it's going to use it as a hyper jump. I actually think, and I'm okay with this, I think this season ends with Thrawn returning. And that's just like, it ends with Thrawn has returned. And then it'll like, we're going to get future, maybe as we get season 2 of Ahsoka. We know there's the film coming that Dave Filoni's doing. Maybe that's all going to lead up to this whole like Heir of the Empire. They have like, because I was talking with Luke about this, and I think it'd be a real shame if they bring him back and then just kill him off.
Yeah.
He is such a great character, great villain. It also, we know in Star Wars, like, they like to have the villain win at times. Till then, like, there's got to be balance. Thrawn lost by getting sent away. It's kind of time to balance it out and let him return properly.
Yeah, 100%.
And they have plenty of time up to episode 7. They can play around with him before he has to disappear. So I actually think the pacing might be okay if they do it that way.
So my thought is, if they are indeed loading Dead Knight Sisters, that'll be the thing they have to win this season.
Yeah.
So that'll like stop a part of Thrawn's plan.
Yeah.
And then he'll run off, and then it'll be into Mandalorian season 3 timeline wise, where we see like the Shadow Council meeting, and we hear that Thrawn is back, but he's in hiding right now.
Ooh,
and
yes.
that'll be him regrouping and stuff, ready for whatever comes next.
Yes.
What the interesting thing is Ahsoka is going to arrive, and I do like this. At the end of episode 4, the ring leaves.
Yep.
End of episode 5, Ahsoka leaves.
Yeah.
Beginning of episode 6, the ring arrives.
Yep.
Beginning of episode 7, Ahsoka arrives.
Yep.
That just makes sense. It makes sense because everyone's like, oh yeah, they're an episode behind them. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And we also know the ring won't have left yet because we know Ahsoka was a rotation behind because she was asleep for a rotation.
Yeah.
That was stated, which means there's still going to be 2 rotations of them loading and shit before they need to go. Which is going to give us time for a bit of a fight before we need to head back to our galaxy.
Yeah. So I think... So this gets on to like finding Ezra.
Yeah.
Coldest line from Enoch. Die well.
I love that so
much. Man did not hold back.
It's such a soldier line, though. Very much like a die with honor.
Yeah.
These are your weapons. It was almost like when he gave it was like, don't just die. Make sure you take 1 or 2 with you.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm sending you to your death, but don't
I
make sure
imagine
you're anyone who dies.
Some of their troopers, like his fellow comrades, have probably died to the same people out there. So it's like, in a way, it's like, at least take some of them with them because of what they've done to us. I thought it was very funny that, like, well, it was interesting the one she fights, suddenly she's terrible with her blasters, which also shows her, like, kind of leaning into the Force more, I think, where then she was better with the lightsaber, and that proved better for her. And we had that bit of a fight, and then I thought it was funny, the little funny sequence they did with the Howler, and she's like, no, bad dog.
I adore the Howler. I know I said I wanted to see a Loaf Wolf.
Yeah,
if we don't get to see a Loaf Wolf, but we get a Howler, I'm pretty happy. It was so fun. I have never, ever felt more seen in my entire life. Like, obviously, I've got a husky.
Yes, you do.
He does not get on well with other animals.
Yeah.
Watching her try to control him when he wants to eat the little turtle dudes is fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine.
And she's just like, no, you sit.
Yeah, she keeps telling him off. I thought it was such a good, like, fun little sequence.
But it's also like when he's like sat behind her, it's just always, he looks at her, his ears go up,
Mm-hmm.
And then it's back to looking at them, ears down, mean look, lick lips.
Yeah, he kept licking lips. And
like,
I swear there was one point
tasty.
where like he stood up to walk and like they added saliva drip, and it's like he's waiting to eat.
Oh, he just wants to eat them.
I thought the little turtle guys were really cool.
They were really cool.
I love that the people Ezra has made friends with are like the local little creatures.
Yeah,
like his connection to animals. Yeah. I love that he carved little Jedi symbols for them.
Yeah.
I will be honest, going into this, as the season's been going on, I was very worried that they were going to just not have really aged Ezra. Because they want to sell that it's Ezra from Rebels. And I was like, that's going to ruin it if he's not really like aged. They did it perfectly. He looked great. He looks exactly like his dad from Rebels, which I think sells it even more. I love that he looks more rugged, like he has actually been living nomadly. Like,
and he's still so Ezra about it.
Yeah, he's still very Ezra. He was straight back
I'm alive. That's the only thing I care about. We're winning, bitch.
Yeah, I liked that there was kind of a moment where he's like, I did what we had to do to win. And then Sabine doesn't say anything. He's like, it worked. And you see that look of like, I hope it worked? Because he's just had to live for 9 years, just being like, well, I did it. I'm presuming that saved the day. Like he has to have just like accepted that I did what I could. Did I save
Lothal? Did I help us stop the Empire?
He's just probably living off the hope that yes, it worked.
Yeah.
I think it's going to bite Sabine in the ass for not telling him how she got there.
So it goes one of two ways, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I do see it being the first way more than the second. I can see, to show us that it is definitely Ezra. Mm-hmm. She says what happens and he overreacts. And like, we'll see it as valid, but he'll overreact and blame her and be angry and shouty. Or they use it as a way to show how much Ezra has changed. And she tells him, and he's like, right, let's get to work fixing it. Very Jedi Master kind of, okay, what's done is done. Thank you for coming to get me. That was a difficult decision. We've got work to do now. And I'm really curious to see which direction they go.
I think she doesn't tell him. Ahsoka arrives, finds them.
Says, what the fuck were you doing?
And she's like, what the fuck's Sabine? And Ezra's like, huh? And then obviously it gets explained. I have a, it's a long shot, but I have a hope to complete the Ghost Crew. I am hoping we get Force Ghost Kanan. Imagine Ezra's just completed his training, like he's been training still for using Force Ghost Kanan to teach him. And it's like he gets pissed at Sabine, goes off, and he has a talk with Force Ghost Kanan, who then reminds him, like you say, come on, chill out, like, deal with this properly. What if we get live action Kanan? Then the Ghost Crew is complete.
I disagree. I don't think the Ghost Crew would be complete.
Why?
We've not had live action Callus. And I view him as Ghost Crew.
Okay. We imagine he's with Zeb though, right?
Yes. I'm hoping we get live action Callus.
I think those two could turn up at the end.
While I'm not much of a shipper, you know me, I don't believe in shipping people. One not confirmed relationship I choose to believe in is Zeb and Callus.
Okay.
I'm all in on that relationship. I see it, I like it, I get it. I see where a lot of the time I'm like, I don't really see it. That one, I see it. I can see Zeb and Callus off on their little planet raising their family.
I think it'd be cool if those two do get to show up at the end. I imagine we haven't had Zeb yet because let's be honest, the VFX budget for Zeb is too high.
To do it right is not cheap.
To do it regularly on every multiple episodes, they can't afford that. But yeah, I thought Ezra Return was great. The little banter they had. I do think it's going to bite Sabine in the back when he finds out what it cost. We also got some more info on Balin.
Yes.
So there's two bits to this that I was going to talk about. We hear him talk about what essentially was Order 66 is what he's explaining.
Yeah.
Like the collapse. And I, for a split second, because I was like, we're not going to get Order 66. We've seen Ahsoka play through it. Like, there's no need to show us again. Balin starts talking about that. I was like, fuck off, Dave. Don't do this to us again. Like,
There's still time.
I was like, he's going to show us Order 66. He's found a way.
There's still time.
There's still time. And I'm now worried because I didn't consider Balin being the reason we see it.
Oh my god. What if Anakin killed Balin's original apprentice?
Possibly.
Because
maybe
we saw the disdain that
maybe
he had for Ahsoka because of her relationship with Anakin, who he seems to know was Vader.
What if it's not Anakin killed his apprentice, Anakin killed his master?
Yeah.
Because if you think of that time period, yes, we know he was a general, and obviously he probably wasn't a Padawan anymore, but he was probably still his general. Obviously, his master would be older.
All I'm thinking is the people who we know were generals are Windu, Plo Koon, Kenobi, Skywalker, like council member level Jedis.
Yeah.
So I would assume if you're gonna go for a what's a gut punch,
yeah,
it's gonna, and for him to have been a master Jedi, to have been a general, he must also have successfully trained a Padawan.
Possibly then, yeah.
Because that's part of the rules.
I do think you're right. I do think Anakin's killed someone, and that's how he knows that he became Vader.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like how he talks about how he misses the concept of the Jedi, but he doesn't actually miss what they did.
That was Dave talking to the fans about old school Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
That is 100% what that is. That is Dave going, you guys miss what you remember Star Wars being. It was never what you remember it as.
Yeah.
You'll sit there, you'll go into it and you go, God, I miss when Star Wars wasn't political. It was always fucking political. And I genuinely believe that is Dave just going, guys, it's okay. Just enjoy stuff.
And it's interesting how he talks about this planet, that it's all like, it was all dreams and mystical and like folk tales. Something like, we don't know anything about this, but clearly the Jedi were told about these things. And then he obviously mentions like his plan is, while everyone's running away from, he senses that the Night Sisters are running away from something, which also leans into why would they load their dead sisters onto there? They want to take them with them. They want to get off this fucking planet. I have a few theories to what he's going to be or what it is he feels and he's searching for, whether he knows it or not. I don't think he does know it. He just knows there's some powerful force related thing that is drawing him.
Yeah.
It could be the father and all that stuff. That like energy with the father, daughter, son. I don't think that's likely. Something I saw online, which is if you remember in Clone Wars when Yoda went and did that weird test in the Sith temple, and I forget what they were called, but there was like 5 ghosts around him.
Yeah.
They're something to do with the Force. It could be them. I think the Wellspring or something it's called. But the one I'm leaning to, because this is very much Rebels Season 2, or not Rebels Part 2. What if it's Bendu?
Or a Bendu-like creature?
Well, Bendu just like blips, like he blipped away, like he is connected with the Force. Like he could just leave and appear anywhere he wants because he's connected to the Force.
Surely, if Bendu was living on this planet, Ezra would have bumped into him. And I get like planets are huge, but just the nature of the Force and the nature of Ezra. Or maybe
Well,
that's how Ezra's like done more training to be more.
maybe.
Instead of being a Jedi, he is just
Maybe he
one with the
knows
Force.
what this thing is.
Yeah.
It's that, or it's something very Sith related, potentially. I think it was Luke messaged me or put in that, like, his theory is it could be Palpatine or like his Force energy, and this is fucking Dave trying to fix the whole somehow Palpatine has returned. Like maybe it's linked with that. I think Bendu would be very cool because also Bendu has connection with Thrawn. He was part of the reason that Thrawn got fucked up.
Yeah.
But Bendu is also, he is neither good nor evil. He's just the
he's
Force.
one with the Force. Yeah.
So that like a live action Bendu would look sick.
That would be so intimidating as well. Bendu was intimidating in the fucking cartoon.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, that could be spicy.
A lot of interesting threads going on. But I think
this happens every week.
It does,
more
which
questions
is
than answers.
Just shows like how well this is going though, because it's like we get answers, but then Dave gives us more questions that keeps us wanting more.
What I will say is, we know as this series of Ahsoka is set before Mandalorian season 3 with potentially a small overlap.
Yes.
And we know in that Shadow Council meeting that Thrawn was interested in the cloning work that Gideon was looking into.
Yes.
I wonder if that's anything to do with the dead Night Sisters, and he's promised the Night Sisters access to the cloning technology so they can repopulate Dathomir.
Yeah, maybe.
Like,
or he's trying to clone his like Dust Boy troopers.
I've got a feeling this Filoni Mandoverse film is gonna be like Mandalorians and Jedis versus Night Sisters and Thrawn and Empire Remnants.
Do you know what I'd be okay with? Is if that film's just called Heir to the Empire, and it's all about like Thrawn making a visible return, and like there's a big fucking like to take down Thrawn.
And yeah, Thrawn loses at the end, but whatever he does accomplish is what leads to the First Order, which still launches the galaxy into more terror.
I think Dave is going to use Thrawn as a catalyst to set up the First Order, and he is doing everything in his power to make those films make sense. 100%. And I applaud him for that, because I don't think anyone else would have taken on that challenge.
My man has deconstructed every scene from that film trying to work out what he can fix. I respect the fuck out of it.
Now you're reminding me that like this is set potentially with a slight overlap into Mando season 3. What if Grogu saw the Purgle?
What if that was on them on their way back?
What if that is Ahsoka, Ezra, Sabine returning in a Purgle? That'd be pretty.
There is, now that we know, like at the time of Mando season 3, we didn't know that Filoni was getting a film to wrap up all these Disney Plus shows. That feels now very, very deliberate that Grogu is so in tune with animals.
Yep.
I am so down for the Mandoverse saga to end with Ezra and Grogu going off as student and master.
Oh my god, yes. Ezra teaching Grogu.
And then maybe we get a little cameo of them in the later film where Rey's starting the new Jedi Order. But we have options.
We do. And we have what, 2 episodes left now? So I think you're right.
7, 8, and 9.
Oh, sorry, 7, 8, and 9, yeah. Next episode, Ahsoka arrives. She's about to get met with. Let's rip some of them Purgle, by the way, that are going to arrive. They're about to get blasted.
I don't want to see Purgle die in live action. That's going to hurt.
We are going to, unfortunately.
It's going to hurt.
Ahsoka's going to end up fleeing that. And I think that's how she's going to find Ezra, because she's going to just fucking hide on the planet somewhere. And then they'll end up somehow getting in contact with Sabine, I bet. And then I think there's that whole fallout of the truth comes out. That then leads to another fight with Balin because Balin's hunting them. So maybe Sabine gets revenge on Balin. Well, revenge, like rematch. Or do you think Balin's going to forget about them and go off and find his thing?
I'm not entirely convinced that. So you know how in the trailer for Ahsoka, we thought we saw Balin and Ahsoka fighting in the World Between Worlds.
Yes.
Then we saw where they were looking at the map and we were like, oh,
yeah.
So they weren't fighting in the World Between Worlds. What if this is like a triple bluff and their rematch does happen in the World Between Worlds and the power that's calling out to Balin is an entryway to the World Between Worlds?
Oh, wait. Yeah, no, maybe it's not he's in the World Between Worlds, but they're at an actual gate point for it. Maybe, that's what he's hearing.
And that gives him some kind of clarity and he realizes that he doesn't have to be against Ahsoka right now.
Ooh. That's an interesting theory. Now I think about it as well, I don't think Balin's going to hunt them. I think Balin's going to be like, we're going to go find our thing, and he's going to show. He's going to split.
Balin is too calm a character.
Yeah, he's very calculated. Do you know what I think actually happens? I think Ahsoka has to go after Balin, while Ezra and Sabine have to go deal with Thrawn.
Yeah.
And because it's just Ezra and Sabine, no offense to them, but like, someone tells me that's why Thrawn gets away.
You've also got to remember, Thrawn's had 9 years of being thwarted by these two. He will be obsessing over how he could have beaten them.
Well, here's the thing as well, like, he clearly knew where, or has keeping track of Ezra. So he's obviously not engaging with him because he has no need to, it doesn't gain him anything. But he's keeping track of him because obviously he screwed him.
Yeah, he doesn't have the resources to deal with him, but he wants to know where he is in case he has the opportunity to. Yeah.
Ezra, you can't tell me he doesn't know, oh, there's Thrawn's ship again. Like, you can't fucking miss that thing. Like, he knows where Thrawn is. Thrawn's on his ship. And he knows the ship's not gone anywhere.
He almost views seeing that ship as a victory, though, because every time Ezra sees that, it's like, good, the fucker's still here.
Yeah. But, like, they obviously know where each other is, essentially. So it's like, Thrawn's going to know if they're coming. But I think you're right. 100%. I think he will happily defeat them and then leave. But also very interesting, like, Thrawn wanted this Night Sister's magic to help.
Yeah. It's also very interesting to me that magic is spelled with a K.
Yes.
Magic.
Make it more spicy.
There's just
a little bit of spice.
I'm a big believer in the way a universe decides to spell magic is very important to how the magic is used. And I've got a feeling we're going to look back and go, we should have known. There was a K at the end of it. We should have known.
I feel like their spelling makes it feel more mystical, like the Night Sister stuff, than it being like, poof, I'm vanished. Or like, so,
I feel like magic with just a C at the end is very much study from a book.
Wizard.
Is essentially science, but different. And then magic with a K is very much, we don't know how it works, but it does.
Here's some green flames.
Yeah.
Here's a dust boy. Yeah, no, I just want more.
I'm not that well attuned to Romanian culture, but something tells me that if we would have a proper look, that the Night Sisters would have a lot of inspiration from Romanian culture. I'm willing to bet.
I don't know. I know. Well, I know that the visual look at them came from the original designs for the Sith.
That makes sense.
Like a concept. Where that concept obviously pulled inspiration from, I don't know, but probably like voodoo-y stuff.
But I am so ready for next week's episode.
Same. Can't come quick enough, honestly. Every week I'm wanting the next episode.
It's
I might have to go back and watch prequels and Clone Wars because of this show.
You know what's really funny though? Me, you, and Luke seem to be the only 3 people on planet Earth that adored both Andor and Ahsoka.
No,
Every week on the internet, it seems to be people screaming that no, Andor is Star Wars, or no, Ahsoka is Star Wars. The other one's dog shit. And then you've just got me who looks at it there going, yeah,
Star Wars,
politics and magic, politics and magic.
Well, that's like, do you know what those? Just need Dave to come out and be like, guys, they're both Star Wars. I think I'm very much like, now we've seen this, like, everything of his is coming full circle. Like Anakin being, like, Clone Wars Anakin, Ahsoka. I'm very excited to see how he wraps this whole, like, Mandoverse thing up.
What I'm really, really curious about, because we've always said, when you look at like the first 2 seasons of Clone Wars and the first season of Rebels, it's like the way they were written was to sell it to Cartoon Network, and then Cartoon Network were happy because it was making the money, and then he got into the real shit, which is hilarious because you can almost see it flip. And he's like, okay, the people who write the checks don't care anymore because the money's coming back in. Real stories.
Yeah.
I do just wonder if it's a case of like MCU style. He left stuff open-ended with ideas.
Yeah.
And now he's just flushing it out. Or if back at the beginning he was like, if I get the chance, I'm going to have a master plan for it all.
I think
in reality, it's probably closer to the first one because no one can function as a human planning that many years ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was all fully planned. I 100% believe throughout the Clone Wars and Rebels, we know he spends a lot of time with George. And it's like, he'll be writing it, and he's like, he'll just, like, there'll be an evening him and George are drinking. He's like, I left this kind of open. And George's like, oh, well, maybe in the future, like, this, maybe that's something that plays out in the future. Or, like, they probably talked about, like, what if, like, down the road we pull that back again? That'd be a cool little story we could do maybe one day. And they've thrown these ideas around. I definitely think it's like, Mando season 1 was his, like, trial into, I don't have to worry about pleasing anyone anymore. Like, I can find my style in live action. Sort of like you say with season 1 of Rebels and the first seasons of Clone Wars. Like, he found his style. And then it's like Ahsoka. He's like, this is I'm steering the ship now.
The first time he does anything, the first series in a new medium for him is always just to keep the accountants happy and get an audience locked in. And then he's like, and now, because you can see it, the first series of Clone Wars and Rebels and Mando were just adventure of the week. It was. And then all of a sudden in Mando season 2, you've got this whole overarching story. It's like, what do you mean? In season 1, the most overarching bit was Moff Gideon is a thing.
Yeah.
But there was legitimately episodes where it's like, oh, I crashed on this ice planet and I need to find this part so that we can leave the ice planet. And that was a whole episode.
Did you watch the Master Apprentice special?
No, I didn't. When I realized it was just a behind the scenes thing, I didn't bother.
So I watched it, and they're obviously just like, it's very short, and they're talking, but there is a moment where Dave's talking, and he's like, when they did Mando, and he got the opportunity to direct an episode, he was like, he's like, I'm doing Ahsoka. Like, this is my chance to try Ahsoka in live action. That's why we got that episode, is because he just wanted to test out doing Ahsoka in live action. And because of that episode, he was like, this works. And that's why we now have the whole show. Like, it was purely just like...
The episode did well, it worked. He just kicked a fucking door down and went, give me money!
And then there's a bit where he has Favreau with him on set. And there's Dave, George Lucas, and then Favreau. And, like, the three of them sat together, and it's just like... You can see George, like, they mentioned that George was, like, wanted to say what a good job that Favreau's been doing. And it's like, George is almost passing the reins to these two. Like, run with it. You are doing it correctly.
I want nothing more in this world than to go to Skywalker Ranch, have a steak and a glass of whiskey with Lucas, Favreau, and Filoni, and just talk about Star Wars for a couple of hours.
I would happily sign an NDA.
Oh, yeah.
just so I can ask things, even if I'm never able to. Like, if that's a lifelong NDA.
I would sign an NDA so strong that I can't even tell you and Luke I've been there to do it.
Yeah.
Just to get the chance to do it. And yeah, it would kill me inside sat here every week, just like, well, you're disagreeing with me on the point. I'm like, George Lucas told me this was the plan, you dumb fuck.
I'd love to be able to just go on like an internet rant, like Kanan's voice actor. I've forgotten his name.
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah, where he's like, I have spent time with George Lucas. This is how it works.
He's explained the Force to me. It is perfectly balanced.
Yeah, just like
you had the Emperor, you have Palpatine. That's why it was twins. 2 + 2. It's balanced.
Yeah.
He was like, I could probably tell you who the good guys and the bad guys are going to be in the next film because it's easy.
It would be interesting to see if any of that like plays out perfectly, and he's just like, see.
I love that rant so much. I showed it to Jenna the other day, and she was like, "That is hilarious." I was like, "Yes, it is brilliant."
By the way, if they do give us Force Ghost Kanan,
it has to be him. It has to be him, 100%.
I'd love if they've actually used him for the picture on the dashboard that Hera has.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell. I think if we could tell easily, it'd be too much of a giveaway. Because
I
if it
think
was
that's
him, they
why.
got into if they got him in to do that picture, everyone would instantly be like, "Well, I want a cameo."
Yeah, it's the Chekhov's gun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Should we talk about a little Aquaman 2 trailer?
I suppose we should.
So, now that I've done the character profile, do you understand why I was so excited to talk about this trailer? Have you pieced it together?
Yeah, the baby's not safe.
The baby is in severe danger. So, when the trailer came out, and the baby was a big part of the trailer,
and then we saw the house
burning to the ground, I tweeted, let me see if I can find it quickly. I quote retweeted it. How long ago did this fucking trailer come out now?
Like a couple of weeks.
I was like, no shot they have the balls to actually kill off the kid, right? Then, about a week later, there was a update. Do you remember a while ago we were talking about how in certain pre-screenings people were getting up and walking out? There is apparently apparently the scene that caused people to get up and walk out was them killing the kid.
Does that mean they've kept it?
This is genuinely the big question now. Not did they shoot the scene with the kid being killed? Not did they kill the kid? Have they left it in the final cut? What's really interesting and potentially troublesome, though, if you like, just think that now try and put that bombshell to the back of your mind quickly and think about the trailer. The trailer, outside that like 3 seconds of a house burning to the ground, is very much pegged as a buddy road trip movie between him and Ocean Master, who was the bad guy in the first film, who's his half brother, who has been put in prison, and he lets his brother out to try and solve the problem.
Yeah.
So either they kill the baby right at the fucking end, or more insanely, they have Black Manta burn the house down and kill the kid, and then Aquaman's response is to go and take his brother who tried to kill him out of prison and go on a buddy cop road trip movie where he's laughing the entire time while mourning the loss of his child.
Do you know what
Surely fucking not, right?
What I was piecing together after what you've said, like with the whole child thing, is my brain was like, what if he fights his brother to try and save the kid?
No, because his brother's on his side in this film.
Yeah, but like, you know how you were saying in character profile, like, he's forced to fight Aqualad. Like, what if he's forced to fight his brother to save the baby?
So it doesn't seem like if they are killing the kid, that's the way they've gone. It seems like it's just he's burnt the house to a fucking crisp with the kid inside it. Which I think is a lot more brutal somehow.
But at least you're not watching a baby slowly suffocate.
Yeah, but it's just what I shit you not. I was sat there watching the trailer, and we got like a really weird shot for a trailer of just a newborn baby in their
Yeah, I was
arms.
just like, oh, this is how they're gonna explain why Aquaman's not
And
been
then
around.
and then it cut to Black Manta sitting in like his throne with his version of his trident,
Yeah.
going, "I'll destroy everything you love." And I'm just
I
like,
will.
they don't kill the fucking.
I will
and then it
say
cuts to the house burning. I'm like, oh no.
he was like, and there's a line where it's like, and his bloodline or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's very like kill the king and his bloodline. Very
Yeah.
typical. They won't kill the baby. Like, obviously the baby's there. It's
Added context adds a lot.
Yeah. Do you know what?
And it also, there is also. Let me see if I can find it quickly. I'm just gonna send you a comic book panel. Don't worry, it's nothing bad, but I think you're gonna find it very funny.
Okay.
Intrigued. I will wait for Hori to see it before I say what I sent him.
Intrigued.
So if you just have a little look at that panel that I've sent you. Would you like to read out what Black Manta is saying in that panel?
How's the wife and kid?
Yeah. I really, really like the idea of the film ending with Black Manta saying that to Aquaman. I do not believe in a live action superhero media they have the balls to actually murder a child.
Here's the thing. What have they got to lose? Like, this film leads to nothing.
No, but it hurts the DC brand. I know what you're going to say. It's like, oh yeah, but they've already done it in the comic. Let's be honest. Comics are not the same.
Yeah, I know. But my thought is just like, it goes nowhere. They already know it's going to struggle with all the Amber Heard shit.
I genuinely believe if news breaks there is a scene where they kill a fucking child in this film, the film will do better than it should.
Oh, people go to see it because of that.
You'll have a lot of people going, there is no way they kill a fucking kid.
Yeah.
The problem is, it's not going to be a 15. It's not. It's going to be a 12. So you're going to have a bunch of parents take their kids to see a superhero film.
Where's the baby gone?
And then you're going to get a bunch of parents on the internet going, what the fuck, DC? I'm never taking my kid to another DC film. I've just watched them kill off a fucking child.
True. Very true. Yeah.
And that is the kind of thing that parents will go, you are never seeing another DC film.
Yeah, because it's like...
Unless under James Gunn, they're fully ready to go R-rated only, it genuinely fucks them long term.
True.
And Aquaman was the last DC film that made money.
Yeah, it's going to be
there's
interesting to see what they do.
Do you know what it's going to be? It's going to be on my least favourite trope. It's going to be the fake death that ends up not being a death.
Do you know who might actually die?
Mera. Oh, that bitch dead. 100%.
I also love how they purposefully
she's in like 2 shots.
Edited that trailer to the point where it's like, she's there. Like, we've not hidden that she's not there. Like, she's there. There's one shot where it's like her back from really far away on a drone shot. And then the other one is like a very split second she punches glass. Are
you ready for my prediction based on the trailer? And based on my knowledge and everything.
Okay.
Originally, this film was Black Manta kidnaps the baby, and you have Mera and Aquaman going around the globe chasing him in the we need to find our child quest.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And the entire time everyone's like, oh my god, I've read this comic. They might kill the fucking kid. And that's the suspense.
Yeah.
Yeah? And then after everything that happened with Amber Heard, despite them saying they've not changed her role, they've not done anything, they've changed it to a buddy cop movie where it is dad and uncle going to find the child, and Mera dies in the house fire.
Yeah.
and the entire time you're like, oh my god, are they going to kill the kid? And they've just pivoted it slightly.
Yeah,
What
I
I
think
will say is
that's
James
likely.
Wan, the director, is a
Mhm.
phenomenal director when it comes to fight scenes, and the action in Aquaman 1 is very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
This film can be okay. It can even be good.
Yeah.
I'm going to be disappointed if they don't kill the kid.
It kind of feels like they have. It depends how they don't.
That's
kill.
also a mad fucking soundbite.
It actually depends on how they don't do it.
Yeah.
Because if they do an Ant-Man situation, it's just gonna feel like you just pussied out because the screening wasn't happy. If it's done in a way where like it's all made sense in the way it's shown, like, and it was like it feels like that was always the case, it's okay. But we know that potentially it's been changed. So
the problem is, and this is always the problem you're going to have with comic book. We've read the comic. We know the story exists, and the way the trailer is set up had the entire internet simultaneously going, "Oh my god, are they actually going to kill the kid?" Which means now everyone's going in with the expectation they're going to kill the kid. So when they don't, because of course they won't.
Do you know what I think actually
everyone
happens?
is going to go.
I think they kill the kid. They just don't show it.
No, but the problem is we know they show the kid.
No,
the only way you can get away with that is if you don't show the kid at all, and it's a kid that you never see who dies off screen.
No, like,
so like if the film comes in to him crying at a burnt down house, and you find out that Manta's killed his entire family, that's okay. Once we see the scene of him holding the child, you can't kill the kid.
Yeah, but I think, well, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do and how they play this out now. Because obviously I didn't know any of that. And
yeah. And like,
it'd be a hell of a way to sign off the DCEU.
We had a checklist when we started the DCEU. We wanted to create a cult following. We did that for Zack Snyder. We wanted to push the boundaries. We did that by having Batman kill people. And we wanted to shock audiences. We did that with how bad our films were and also with killing a child.
I mean, James Gunn couldn't do worse. So
it's interesting.
Yes, it is.
But we will see what happens. I mean, although I know they won't kill the kid, I'm going to be disappointed if they don't kill the kid. It's an expectation I have now.
The rough thing is, as well, that film comes out December 20th.
Yeah.
What a way to start Christmas.
You definitely can't kill a kid 5 days before Christmas.
I wouldn't put it past DC or Warner Bros.
I'm amazed, but yeah. So you obviously are not plugged into the same part of Twitter as me, and you're off on your holidays.
Yeah.
Everyone on the timeline. So I saw a lot of people quoting it going, they wouldn't, would they? And I'm like, what are they talking about? And I watch it, and then I'm instantly like, oh shit, they wouldn't, would they?
Oh dear.
But yeah, made me laugh.
Yeah.
Are you ready for some Nerd News Network?
Yes, I am. Let's get into it.
We got some little tasty, spicy bits of information this week.
Some interesting bits have come out.
So, starting for Deadpool 3, there's been an interview or something with the director where he's spoken about a lot of things. And one of the big things taken away from it was he was asked about Deadpool 3. And obviously, Deadpool is going to be in the MCU going forward.
Yeah.
And there's rumored to be a lot of cameos. He's confirmed that there are a lot of cameos, but not all of the cameos everyone's seeing online are true and can be trusted.
Right.
And basically, it seems like he was also asked a question about Secret Wars. Because they were like, your film was rumored to have a lot of cameos, but Secret Wars is also rumored to have a lot of cameos. Is there any chance that some of the cameos you've got are also going to show up in Secret Wars?
Smart question.
And he basically said, the way we're analysing and looking at this film is telling the story of the Fox and X-Men universe.
Right.
So a lot of people have taken that information and they think, because of when Deadpool 3 comes out and the fact there's nothing else in between, that Deadpool 3 is going to lead directly into Secret Wars. So you've got Spider-Man Homecoming, which has dealt with the Spider-Man legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have Deadpool, which is going to deal with the X-Men legacy.
Uh-huh.
Then in Secret War, you get everyone back and you deal with all of Marvel's film legacy together, ready for a fresh reboot into something new.
Okay. I can see that.
So there are a lot of people who think, and I'm not sure I 100% agree or disagree, it's just an interesting consideration that Deadpool could lead directly into Secret War. Which, bearing in mind, Deadpool 3 is supposed to come out late next year, currently, assuming there aren't more delays. And Secret War was due to come out in 2025. I believe it's now 2026. That's a long time if Deadpool 3 literally leaves off ready for Secret War. That's a lot of time for us to sit there twiddling our thumbs going, okay, I need the payoff for that.
Do you know what it might be? It's like, it doesn't lead directly, but it sets up all the X-Men stuff for Secret Wars. So we get like the start of the build up to it.
But it is basically confirmed by the director himself that when they were writing this film, they were thinking about the legacy of Fox X-Men.
I think that hints at a lot of the cameos.
Which I think makes a lot of sense when we already had Hugh Jackman confirmed to be back as Wolverine and the leaked set photos which showed the fucking destroyed Fox logo in the background. Like, I don't think he's really given anything away there. Other than the fact that that legacy is going to play a part of the story and not just be the butt of jokes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Speaking
of the butt of the joke,
we are giving DC a proper railroading tonight. Fucking hell. HBO Max, or just sorry, it's just Max now. I don't even know why the HBO is still there. Has the highest cancellation rate of any streaming service.
Oh my god, who would have seen
26.9%.
In a shocking turn of events that no one could have predicted.
Would you like to have a guess at what was second?
Is it Netflix?
No. Oh. Netflix was actually closer to the bottom than the top.
Oh. Interesting. Disney Plus.
It was.
That's a surprise.
But there is a bit of a reason for that. Not that I'm defending Disney Plus. Disney Plus lost the contract for cricket in India.
Yeah.
Which caused like the largest ever single day cancellation of a streaming service.
Yeah.
And I think that is still affecting that number pretty significantly because it was within the last 12 months.
I'm not surprised about Max though.
No.
I guarantee with all the mess of the crossover transfer, a lot of people were like, oh, I'll leave my subscription going like it's becoming Max. There was a mess. They were like, oh, this is shit. Forgot to cancel it for a month or so later, like, oh yeah, we should cancel Max. We've got Christmas coming up. We don't use it anymore. And it's like, since that crossover merge situation, it's just like people have carried their subscriptions over and then been cancelling them after like a month or so because they realize it's shit. It's just
But also, like with HBO, any of their good shows get put on Sky Atlantic in the UK. Like,
we don't. Well, that's the thing. It's like they don't have, the market's so limited as well.
And a lot of Americans have gone, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
They'll be the kind of streaming service that when they release a really good show, they'll see a massive spike. People will watch that show and they'll all cancel.
Yep.
So yeah. Chris Evans, Steve Rogers, Captain America.
Yeah, I saw this on the list and it made me laugh.
So like this is the bit just because it's just such a memorable bit. But he did basically an interview where he talked about a lot of things. One of the things he mentioned was he agrees with Tarantino that the actors are not the stars of the MCU, the characters are.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. But the much more interesting part of the interview was that he plans to take a step back from acting and act less. And he said, and this is a quote, "I'd like to just smoke a joint, put on some music, and get into pottery."
Do you think he's been hanging out with Seth Rogen?
Well, it's really interesting because as part of this interview as well, he was talking and reflecting on Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Right.
Of course, he's just done some voice acting for the new anime that's coming, and he was like, "That was the last time I was really happy on set." And he was like, "And that was my favorite ever film to be on set for. And when I was done and I had my last day on set for that, I was like, I can just hang around if you guys want."
Honestly, it doesn't surprise me. I feel like we've seen it a lot now where a lot of the people in the big MCU roles got burnt out by the machine.
They spend 12 months a year in one of three places: a gym, a set, or a
green screen,
or like a interview room. That was it. They just rotated between the three. I don't even know if they slept for like 5 years straight. It was just gym, eat steroids, do an interview, eat more steroids, go and film, eat more steroids.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that, like, let's be real, he's made a fuck ton of money from Marvel. He doesn't need to
work out exactly how much. How much?
I guarantee
did Chris Evans
make off MCU
make from Marvel? But
that's the thing, like, it doesn't need to work.
So between June 18 and June 19, it's estimated he made about 44 million. And that's in one 12-month period.
Yeah. So he don't need to work. He don't need to act. I imagine the Marvel machine has burnt him out on Hollywood, like a lot of the actors have.
When Disney finally cave and have to pay writers' residuals, he's going to be making bank from Disney Plus too.
True.
Man's just going to get up in the morning, put Disney Plus on to play all the Captain America films on repeat and go back to bed.
Making himself some pottery shields. Yeah, it's not a surprise to me. Interesting comment, though. It made me laugh.
It's so Chris Evans, and I think because for so long he was Captain America and he was under a Disney contract, he was very straight down the line. This is the Chris Evans I think of when I think of Chris Evans, though. A bit of a goofy, funny guy who just he likes to smoke a joint.
Yeah, he was so like tied into that Marvel machine as Captain America. He essentially became Steve Rogers IRL because he had to kind of portray himself in that way. And yeah, you forget that he's...
Well, I'm pretty sure it's a rule in contracts that anyone working for Disney as an actor has to never refuse a photo op with someone under the age of 13.
Wouldn't surprise me.
So the whole idea is if a kid comes up to you and they're excited because they're meeting Captain America, you take the fucking photo.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
And I'm sure there was like caveats to that. It was like, if you can't do it, you give them something instead. You don't just go no. You bargain with them, but you don't just say no.
If you can't do a photo, you do a signature or you do
you give them something else instead, but you don't leave them with nothing when they think they're meeting their hero.
Yeah.
But it's fine because, you know, they're asking for too much money.
It's true.
Fucking Bob Iger. Oppenheimer. You know that film that came out in the summer and is now the highest ever grossing biopic?
Yes, I saw that.
It's finally announced roughly when it's coming on digital.
Nice.
Not, you know, like all the other films that after it's been in cinema for one day, goes, this is the exact second you can watch it somewhere other than a cinema.
Yeah. It's almost like the person who made it respects cinema.
Yeah, it's almost like Nolan specifically had written in his contract it will be in the cinema for 6 weeks, and you are not allowed to release it on digital or announce it's coming to digital for like 6 weeks after that.
Do you know what it probably was? It's probably the publishers are like, so when can we release this? Like, I've not decided yet, but we need to know for market. I'll tell you. And it's like they
Um,
legally aren't allowed to make the decision themselves.
no.
Like he has to sign off on the date, and he's just like, you can wait.
Sometime maybe this week, sometime maybe next week. But Oppenheimer will launch on digital in late November, which will make it, as is tradition, about 6 months since it came into the cinema.
Sticks to his what he
as God
knows.
intended. As God intended.
You probably find that's what he's always done for his films.
Yeah, it's how films always used to be. Granted, it was different before digital and it was DVDs, but even then, it'd be about 6 months after it was in cinema, you'd be able to get it on DVD, which meant people had to go to the cinema or they'd have to wait 6 months.
Yeah.
Heck, cinema people. Now, this is a wild story that literally got more news added to it today, so it could still change.
Okay.
So, the Marvel's budget was reported to only be $130 million late last week, which would have made it the tied lowest ever for an MCU project.
Okay.
However, Marvel have claimed that the budget is actually $274 million, which would make it the most expensive. So people are of the opinion that that $274 million is actually including the marketing budget as well.
Well, yeah, but it's not. I can't imagine their marketing budget would be.
Marketing budgets are normally about 100 million.
True.
For a film this size.
Yeah,
which
true.
Would give it a true budget of about 174.
Yeah. Interesting.
Which is interesting.
It worries me if it is the lowest budget ever, because there's a lot of VFX that are going to be needed.
Yeah. And also, like, so you had 130, which was Ant-Man.
Look how well that went.
To put it in perspective, the lowest up until now was Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, both at 130 million. The most expensive was, oh wait, this is only updated as to August 23rd, 2020, so this probably isn't accurate anymore. But the most expensive at the time was Avengers on 225 million.
Right.
I don't think that's accurate anymore. I think Endgame was higher.
Probably.
But still, 274 million for the entire film is bollocks. There is no way that's the case. But I just find this confusion about the true budget is very interesting when not even a month ago it got reported that Disney and other studios are being sued for lying to financiers about
money, do you know what this
and how much stuff has cost, etc., etc.
It's great, like that play, all that going on at the moment. Plus, if they're telling like, oh, we can't afford these demands because these are our outgoings for these films, and then suddenly it gets reported that the film only cost this much, and they've been saying, no, these film, like our film costs have been this. It feels like they're just trying to make up, oh shit, we need to like get our costs higher so that we can, what we've been saying is true. It's, yeah, very inflated numbers. And if they're doing that on this film, how many other films are they inflated by like shoving the marketing into it?
Well, it gets better.
Oh.
As well as discrepancies over how much the budget might be.
Yeah.
Which I agree, there is potentially some trying to hide the numbers so they can give an excuse not to raise wages.
Mm-hmm.
Disney have also pledged $6 billion towards trying to improve their theme parks.
Can't afford it though.
But they can't afford 0.02% of their annual revenue going towards salaries for their writers who write the stories that allow them to make these theme parks.
But don't forget, they're having to cut back on costs on MCU and Star Wars.
It's fuck Bob Iger.
Man, do
Um,
you know what that screams though? It's like he's reeling in how much they're spending on the shows because they're not making enough money. So they're making that look better. He's pumping money into the theme park because that makes it a more expensive asset to sell.
just
So
like we discussed a couple of weeks back, of Bob Iger is just sitting there long enough to try and sell to Apple.
yeah, he's just trying to make it look good on the books for Apple.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem is now on digital. Whee! I actually don't think it's now on digital right as we're talking about this. I believe it is actually today as this is going out.
Oh, okay.
The 22nd.
Plenty of time to get a bunch of kids hooked on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in time for Christmas.
Yep. And another thing to go along with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is, and this was like just after you left, some footage came out of them recording their lines. And basically the way Seth Rogen wanted it done was he got the four boys in the booth, as we already knew had happened, because he's a big fan of everyone recording together. He would get them to do one take with the scripts.
Yeah.
He would take it away, give them the context of the scene, and tell them to go at it.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
And a lot of what made the final cut was the improvised stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is why words like Riz were used.
Oh.
Because they are teenagers talking like teenagers.
That's cool. So glad he did that.
Yeah, and it was just a case of, no, but we're 40-year-old men writing about teenagers. We don't know we know what we were like as teenagers. That was 40 years ago. You guys, this is what needs to happen. Go. And I think it's also a testament to how fucking talented them kids are.
Yeah, it is. To be able to just like...
And they did because it was like a press bit essentially. They were also like talking. And they were like, it was so much fun just getting in there. And it really gave us like a brotherly vibe as well. I feel like these are my brothers now. But yeah, absolute comedy. And it came across that they were all recording together. But the fact that they built this natural charisma and chemistry with each other because they were forced to actually improvise instead of just reading their lines.
Yeah.
Really, really added to it, in my opinion.
100%.
Another MCU schedule change. It's a catastrophe.
It's hard to keep up at this point.
So Loki was supposed to come out October 6th.
Yes. Yes, it was.
It's now coming out October 5th.
Wow.
At 6 p.m. Pacific time.
So...
Which is going to make it like...
2 a.m.?
4 a.m.?
No.
3?
2 a.m.
I don't know. Early Friday morning for us UK people, which means for us UK people, you're still going to watch it on Friday the 6th. So be extra careful about spoilers on the timeline because people don't seem to give a fuck anymore.
This is true.
Oh, I've literally had every single episode of Ahsoka spoiled for me.
See,
every single one.
I don't know how I do it. I've had no spoilers, but I have people talking about spoilers.
Yeah, so people just...
I don't know how I do it, but I have people on my timeline being like, can I stop seeing spoilers for like Ahsoka? Can I stop seeing spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen? And it's like people like, this week was terrible for people doing it. And I'm like, I haven't seen anything. I'm just a master of just avoiding things, apparently.
Yeah, it was, I literally... And this is why I'm also not in such a rush to watch Ahsoka, because I feel like I've seen 90% of the episode before I even get to sit down and fucking watch it.
Oh, see, I haven't had...
And the problem is, like, because, like, as bad as it is, part of my, like, morning routine is getting up and just checking my phone, I've not even woken up and processed the fact that a new episode has come out before I'm slapped in the face with a spoiler.
Ah, see, I don't go on TikTok on a Wednesday morning.
And this is why Americans need to fucking remember next time the British get something early and the British fans decide to ruin it for the Americans.
But they won't. They'll cry about it.
They did it for loads of stuff, and then we were getting Venom, and they were like, oh no, please don't ruin it for us. We'll be good, we promise. And we're like, no, fuck you. It's time you learn. And they just go straight back to it because Ahsoka comes out like late Tuesday night for them, and they can watch it at like 11 p.m. their time, which means they've had 12 hours of fucking discussing it when we're waking up, and we're like, what's good? And they're just all fucking ruining it. Scumbags, a lot of them. Get them gone. But yeah, so we're going to be even further behind on Loki being fresh when we're doing our episodes on it. Because it's going to be like 12 hours earlier.
Yeah.
It's what it is. When I saw it as the 5th, I was like, oh, sweet. So we'll just watch that before we record. But then I saw the times it was going to be coming out. And it's going to be like silly o'clock Friday morning. Because, fuck anyone who's not American, am I right?
Oh, well.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to Loki. And that I think Loki and Ahsoka overlap by a week. Episode 7 is the 27th. Episode 8 is the 4th.
Yeah, so
episode
1 week
9
overlap.
will be the 11th. So there'll be 1 week. I mean, there will be 2 weeks where we get an episode, but there will only be 1 episode where we discuss both Ahsoka and Loki. So yeah.
Well, keeps the things flowing.
It does indeed. Content championship time.
Yes.
Amazing Spider-Man versus the Phantom Menace. The 2 titans of being hated and then slowly loved. As always, we will discuss these films based on 6 points. Personal relevance, how well has it aged, rewatchability, story, acting, and cinematography / general visual appeal.
Yes.
Would you like to get us started?
Sure. So personal relevance. This is actually kind of tough because obviously both hold pretty nostalgic points. Like, yes, I remember the Raimi Spider-Man films. But I was very young when they were coming out. Amazing Spider-Man was essentially my generation Spider-Man. Like, it's the one that...
It was 10 years ago now. 11.
Yeah. It's the one that we went to cinema and we grew up with and we saw, and it holds that point. Like, that's the Spider-Man that I often think about, sometimes first when I think back. So it holds a pretty relevant place. But then you got Phantom Menace. I'm a big Star Wars fan. But I will say that I remember the original trilogy before I think about the prequels. Because obviously they're like the ones I saw very young or saw bits of. But then prequels, I mean, how can you not remember the pod racing?
That moment where the second blade comes out.
Like, that's the thing. It's like the prequels were the ones of our generation, and we kind of grew up in a place where the Star Wars fans hated them, but we were like, well, they're not that bad.
Well, just to put in perspective how important the Phantom Menace was, I did not grow up in a rich family. We are much better off now than we were when I was growing up, and I'm so thankful for that. But we were working to maybe slightly top end of working class.
Yep.
And the one expensive toy I had was my lightsaber, which was Darth Maul's lightsaber. And obviously everyone had their own little lightsaber back in the days, even if it was a cheap knockoff one. It was actually one of the few things that kids didn't bully each other for, as long as you had a lightsaber, come play Star Wars. And I remember the day I got it, I had my double-ended Darth Maul lightsaber, and all my friends only had their single. They had their Darth Vader one, or their Obi-Wan one, or their Anakin one. And I'm there with 2, and I'm like, right, let's fucking have you, because I've got both ends, and I'm giving it some. And they are some of my fondest memories of playing as a child. So I'm like, I am the badass because I have the cool double-ended lightsaber. Which is why, although I'm not personally a fan of Kylo Ren's lightsaber, when I saw it, that child part of my brain still went, oh, it has vents. And we all knew it was just for selling toys.
Oh yeah,
at the same time, we're like, I would have wanted that toy.
Everyone's like, that looks really fucking cool. Makes no sense, but it looks really fucking cool.
Yeah. And you're right. The prequels are films.
Yeah, and it's why we've fallen in love. Our generation love Anakin so much, and I mean, we got given a lot of extra stuff to build on that, but
100%. But when I fully started to form my identity and what I liked was around the time I realized that I'd just been told the prequels were bad. I
yes,
didn't actually hate them.
mm-hmm.
I do dislike Attack of the Clones. I think that's a poor film. I love it for its nostalgia, but I think overall it's a poor film. But Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith are actively good films.
Yeah,
I was just told for 15 years by adults who grew up watching the original trilogy that they were shit.
Yeah, and I
Which
always
is why
remember.
I always laugh when our generation shits on the sequels. It's like, yeah, but it wasn't for you.
That's funny because it's like I was similar. Like I always remember watching them and thinking, I don't think they're that bad. Like I don't get why people are hating on them. And then people are like, you have to watch if you're gonna binge it, you have to watch the original trilogy, then the prequels because the original trilogy is better and it makes you appreciate them more. And I'm like, yeah, but I just want to watch it in order. Like, am I wrong for that? And I enjoy the prequels. Like it's Star Wars. Like lightsabers. Need I say more? So I think although Amazing Spider-Man was our generation Spider-Man, it's Star Wars. It's just Star Wars.
It's really rough. Yeah. I would say for what I've written down was for the Amazing Spider-Man, it is the most underrated Spider-Man film.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also starting to float around being overrated because the internet is looking at it with slightly too many rose-tinted glasses. It's not as bad as people acted at the time, but it is not as good as people are acting now. As with everything, it is somewhere in the middle. Yeah. And then with Star Wars, you had fans who loved Star Wars from the 80s, hated it. And they made the actor who played young Anakin in episode 1 quit acting forever.
Yeah.
And I know moving on from episode 1, Hayden Christensen didn't really do much acting work and was given abuse for years. And only in literally the last 2 or 3 years has he finally seen the group of fans who actually love and adore him.
Yeah, he's had 20 years of waiting for that.
Yeah, but I love both these films so much. This is going to suck no matter what decision we come to.
Yes.
Right. I'm going to read out what I have written for one of the films and how well it has aged.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me what film I've written it about.
Oh, okay. Let's see if I can figure this out. Yeah.
Well, it's more loved now than it was at release by far. And it would be a cult classic if not for the size of the franchise it comes from.
I'm gonna say Star Wars because you mentioned. Oh, it was a trick question. I'm sat here thinking Star Wars is big, but I mean Spider-Man and Marvel is also fucking huge. So it's like.
I was sat here, I was trying to work out what was right. I was like, I have the exact same opinion versus how well it's aged for both of them. They were both massively overhated at release, and every day people love it and love it more. And they genuinely are them kinds of films that would be viewed as cult classic than films that didn't do well, but people love. And the only reason I don't view it as a cult classic is because I think the franchises are too big for them to be considered cult classics.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know if I can say one of these has aged better than the other.
I would maybe argue Star Wars like Phantom Menace has, but then I feel like I'm taking into the bias of all the extra content we've had from animated Clone Wars that built those characters up more, that made us fall in love with those characters more, that has helped obviously the film's age better for us.
Yeah, 100%. It's really tricky.
I would maybe say Phantom Menace also, we grew up and a lot of us didn't hate them and we were told to hate them. But I feel as it's aged, yes, they've aged better for us, but it has also some of those people that were like, oh, these were rubbish films, have realized, oh, actually they're good Star Wars.
It was really funny when the sequels were coming out. Watching a bunch of people who I know for a fact used to hate the prequels, going, the prequels weren't great, but at least X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, they're realizing, oh wait, maybe we were wrong about the prequels. I can't wait for us all to be saying the same about the sequels once Dave's fixed it.
I have my issues with the sequels, but overall, I have always believed they are actually okay films. There's just the biggest problem the sequels had has always been
the story,
a lack of overall direction.
Yeah,
because they kept chopping and changing shit.
So yeah, I would maybe lean towards Phantom Menace as age slightly better.
I would agree overall, but just as a counterpoint, because what's the point if we don't argue for no reason? Could you argue Spider-Man has aged better because it's done the same amount of growth in less time?
I guess, yes.
But I do think I agree that Star Wars has aged better. Rewatchability.
Who? I don't know. I feel like they're very similar.
So I do have a winner here from a very logical and boring point of view.
Okay.
The Amazing Spider-Man you can simply watch by itself.
See, this is where my brain was going.
However, and we've used this as a metric before.
True.
If you watch The Phantom Menace, as much as I hate it, I'm throwing on Attack of the Clones.
Yeah. And then you're making the decision, do I watch animated stuff?
Are we rewatching the Clone Wars, or are we just going straight into Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah. I was like, my brain's like, they're both the start points of their respective situations. And it's like, you could throw either of them on. You don't need to watch anything before them. Spider-Man is a bit shorter. Like more, like you say, you could watch that on its own, not worry about the second one. Probably be fine. Throw on Phantom Menace and you're like, well, I'm going to have to watch at least the prequels.
Yeah.
And then by that point, well, I might as well watch the original trilogy.
Put it this way. Having grown up in the time we did, the 14-year-old boy inside our head would lose our ever-loving shit if we don't rewatch Attack of the Clones to see Natalie Portman in that outfit.
Okay, point made.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, come on now. There's going to be a 14-year-old boy punching you in the brain, just going, "Fuck, do you think you're doing?"
Yep. Okay. Spider-Man wins that
one. Story.
I'd actually maybe lean. The prequel story is good. It is the start of the story and the setup. And without the full trilogy, I think you need to watch the whole story across the trilogy. I think you could actually just get away with the story in the Amazing Spider-Man, and like, it's an origin. It is what it is, though. Like, this is.
So, I'm gonna need you to cast your brain back to you when you were watching The Amazing Spider-Man for the first time, as I make my points for the story here. It is a solid story, and it was cool to see Gwen as an actual main character, because at the time that hadn't happened in popular media. And it was really cool to see the Lizard as the main villain, because the only time that had really happened before was in comics.
Yep.
And in the 90s animated show. And they also set up good threads for a long Spider-Man saga if they'd pulled their finger out and done it properly. They actually did a lot of stuff for the first time. The biggest complaint people had at the time was Andrew Garfield is too cool to be Peter Parker. What a dumb fucking complaint.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, hot take, I think this story had the best version of Flash Thompson. In the Raimi trilogy, we just get the bully.
Yeah.
And in the MCU trilogy, we get the modern bully.
Yeah.
Who's like less physically a bully and more social media bully, which makes sense. But this trilogy gave us the physical jock that I think Flash Thompson should be.
Yeah.
But you also had the scene after Uncle Ben died where Flash comes to talk to him And he goes, "Not today, Flash." And he grabs him and throws him up against the locker. And Flash just goes, "I heard about your uncle. You okay?"
Yeah.
And that is a very Flash Thompson style. I don't like characters being two-dimensional for the sake of it, and just to have that pop of, "Oh, it's Flash," when he's not going to be a plot point. So for them to go, "No, Flash was more than that." We know bullies are assholes, but they're always assholes because they have their own problem going on. And in all really good Spider-Man media, they always actually examine Flash in that way of, why is Flash being a dick?
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. And I don't think any other Spider-Man story in live action has nailed that.
Yeah, that's fair.
But again, like I said with Star Wars, without the story in the Phantom Menace, we have nothing. Yes, I know the original trilogy was written before the prequels, and it existed without it. But that is the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
It adds context. It gives us everything. Yes, Darth Vader is obviously an absolute badass. But if we didn't have the prequels, you wouldn't feel kind of a weird sadness when you see Darth Vader. Yeah, your first thing is like, "Oh, he's such a badass," but you're just like, "Oh, Anakin, why?"
Yeah.
And the prequel memes, although a lot of them come from a genuinely memey place, there are some where you do find yourself quite sad. And it's like when you're watching Revenge of the Sith and Anakin still falls to the dark side, and it's just someone crying. It's like it added a lot of emotion to Star Wars. In a really, really smart way, despite the dialogue sometimes being shit.
That's what it is.
Well, do you know what? And I know this is the wrong film, but we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
When Anakin is talking about sand.
Yeah.
It's beautiful because it just shows that George Lucas at times had the perfect idea but just couldn't execute.
Yeah.
And the whole point is he has the really dull line of, "I don't like sand, it's coarse and it hurts."
Yeah.
Yeah. That he isn't talking about sand. He's talking about the difference between Padme growing up as a princess and him growing up as a slave. To her, the beach was a relaxing thing to go and bathe in the sun. To him, the sand was where he was a slave and where he worked in horrible conditions. And people just ignore this.
They just think it's like everyone's meme stance.
Yeah, this is the problem. I just don't think people had enough. It's not reading comprehension. It's something comprehension, though.
Well, yeah, it's people kind of went into that film with a certain perception.
But I would agree that the absolute standalone story, which is how we always try and do these, that the Spider-Man story is tighter and more well put together.
Yeah. I agree.
Acting. I think this might be the strongest category for both films.
Yeah. They've both got good casts.
We get Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson, like
Samuel L. Jackson in the first.
Samuel L. Jackson, Mace Windu's in the first one.
So, like, straight away, stacked.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, we have Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone very early in their careers.
Yeah.
And I always forget this. Do you remember who played Uncle Ben in The Amazing Spider-Man?
I can, like, picture him, but I can't think of his name.
It was Martin fucking Sheen.
Yeah,
Like, he is a superstar at the time. That is, like, such stacked casts. They all pull their role to perfection. I genuinely think the only difference in what could be viewed as the quality of acting is the quality of the script.
Yep. Where Star Wars is
a little bit weaker because it is. It was written 10 years earlier when these kind of films really didn't need to have a stronger script.
Yeah.
But I mean, everyone acted their arse off. Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon Jinn might be one of my favorite castings of all time.
Yeah, and then you've also got like something in Star Wars is like part of the acting is the lightsabers and like the way they fought with them and like all the fight scenes, and
Ewan McGregor constantly getting in trouble for making the lightsaber noises with his mouth. which we would all do.
Oh yeah, well, Hayden Christian did it as well.
Apparently, them two were a nightmare to work with during
I
farewells.
imagine they just pissed about
constantly.
But yeah, both had great casts. One had slightly stronger script, but I feel like those performances in Star Wars though were such strong characters.
I think the performances in Star Wars elevate a weak script to the point where this is even a discussion. I think if they acted to the quality of the script, Phantom Menace would actually be as bad as some people want to pretend it is.
Yeah, I could agree on that then. Yeah.
That would be my opinion on it.
Yeah, no, I do think the people in those prequels helped heighten it to what it is.
Yeah. Cinematography. I have one major point for each of these.
Okay, let's hear them.
Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
The Amazing Spider-Man is the best live-action web swinging we've ever had.
Exactly where my brain went.
Nothing else in live action has got close to what the Amazing Spider-Man films put together.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of that the final battle of the Amazing Spider-Man when he's hurt on the roof and he has to get back to the Osborn Tower or the Oscorp Tower, and you see the cranes coming together to give him like a slightly easier route, and you see him swinging there. The way New York is, and I hate it's like the most cliche thing to say, but the way New York is a character in the story. But like they made the web swinging feel very natural, which is such an important part of Spider-Man's visual appeal. And don't get me wrong, it's always done well, but they really went.
They nailed it.
If we only get one thing right, let's make sure it's the web swinging.
Yeah.
And I would give anything to go back to it because it was just so damn good. And for Phantom Menace, I simply put, Duel of the Fates is cinema heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how else to put it.
That the
scene
two places
made me feel some kind of way.
Like, when we said cinematography, in my brain's like, well, Spider-Man had really good web swinging. And that's like the thing that like sticks out, like, of what they did so well with how it was shot. And then I'm like, then Duel of the Fates. Just the way that scene's put together from start to finish. I actually think like I can't even. Like, there's no question to me when I think about it that way. Like, as soon as I think about that one sequence, it's Phantom Menace.
It's rough. The problem is with cinematography, we also take into account the general visuals of it.
Yeah.
And they had a CGI lizard for a lot of that film, and they did it flawlessly.
True. They did. But then Phantom Menace was before they went too crazy with CGI, so still.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying this is an easy discussion at all.
I know.
But like the Amazing Spider-Man, despite its flaws and the sequel's flaws, they are both gorgeous films.
Mm-hmm.
And Phantom Menace is such a nice film to look at. Like it's one of them films that you don't strain your eyes to watch. Your eyes genuinely feel relaxed just taking it all in.
Mm.
And I'd say it's very impressive, bearing in mind they spend a fair bit of the film on Tatooine, where it's all just dusty and beige.
Yeah.
To make that visually appealing is fucking impressive.
This is true.
And pod racing.
Also pod racing. One of the best N64 games.
I suggest we call cinematography a draw.
Okay.
And then hope the other 5 settle the decision for us so we don't have to decide which is the better looking film.
Okay. Well, personal
relevance is purely your personal opinion. I assume you're taking Phantom Menace?
This is correct.
I would be taking Spider-Man, naturally. This kind of how the whole podcast works. You're the Star Wars dude,
Yeah.
I'm the comic dude. We'd be in big trouble if it was the other way around. How well it is aged, we agreed with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Despite my very good Spider-Man point.
Yeah.
Rewatchability, we gave
Spider-Man.
to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Story, we gave to Spider-Man.
Acting,
we gave to Star Wars.
So we're drawn. Through and through.
For fuck's sake.
We are perfectly drawn.
I guess we're deciding what film looks better. You're asked to watch one of these films purely as a graphic designer to look purely at the visuals. You don't give a fuck about the acting, the story, anything. You're just taking one for the visuals. You're taking Star Wars.
Star Wars.
There we go. You're the designer. I would disagree, but you're the designer. We're going to trust your artistic integrity here. If you get smoked, you lose all your credibility.
Okay. The VFX are great in Spider-Man, but like the shots that we get in Star Wars just have a different feel.
This is where we have the real issue of cinematography and being general visuals as well, being so wide, because cinematography in reality is its own thing.
Yeah.
But when we talk about TV shows, cinematography just isn't fair when you're looking at something like Green Arrow versus a Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
But that puts Phantom Menace through. And do you know what else that is?
Is that the last one?
That is the end of the first round.
Jeez, that's gone on for a while.
We are now in round 2 of the Content Championship bracket.
Damn.
Would you like me to list off the round 2 matchups?
Yeah, go ahead.
Clone Wars
Mm-hmm.
versus X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh, easy.
Star Wars Rebels versus Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, easy for me.
Andor versus James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
Difficult for you.
Breaking Bad versus Return of the Jedi.
I've only seen one.
Animated Spider-Man versus Rogue One.
Oh, easy.
These next year are a lot more difficult.
Oh.
Daredevil
Mm-hmm.
versus Lord of the Rings Fellowship. It's a dirty one, innit?
Yeah.
Punisher versus Winter Soldier.
Also dirty.
And Moon Knight versus Phantom Menace.
Oh, that one I feel is...
Yeah.
Is, yeah.
So you'll notice that each one of these is one of our show winners versus one of our film winners.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be starting with round 2 from next week. How very exciting.
Yes.
I think we're going to have a lot less painful matchups than we've had in the first round. Because in the first round, it was me trying to match whatever you'd chosen to make it interesting. These are just the ones that have survived our matchups.
Yeah. I think this round's going to be fairly easy. The next round will then go hard again.
Yeah. Yep. But that is it from us this week.
It's been a long one this week.
It has. We've had so much to catch up on. How dare you take holiday, Mr. Horizontal? I'm going to need you to book it 6 months in advance to get someone to cover your shift next time.
It's not my fault Ahsoka had to put out 2 banger episodes.
Yeah, they've been burning holes in my brain for weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you as always for hanging out, guys. Make sure you're liked up, make sure you're subscribed up, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Catch you next week.